Karen got angry that I snapped at her kid after that same kid started screaming in my ear. Hi there, thanks for having me here. So, this happened a few years ago at a major airport in the United States. I worked as a pilot for an airline, and in the course of my duties, I ride our aircraft to and from home to our crew base. I often did this out of uniform, with my only identifying feature being my work ID/lanyard. My last flight before time off put us on the ground around noon. Being off duty, I immediately changed out of my uniform and took a seat from the gate where my flight home would depart from. Behind me, there was a rambunctious child that was using the seats as her personal playground and randomly squeal and scream while doing so. While this is annoying and the squeals are like nails on a chalkboard to me, it's the reality of things, and I just ignored it and browsed through my tablet. But the next thing I know, I catch a full scream into my ear, and I turn my head and the kid is literally a couple of centimeters from my face and is hanging off the back of my chair. I immediately snapped at the kid and said, "Do not scream into my ear." And that is when the Karen mother, who was just letting this happen, loses her crap. She darts up, standing over the seat behind me, yelling at me, "Don't you yell at my kid, how dare you!" The kid, meanwhile, had a shocked look, but settles down and goes silent. Karen continues on, trying to goad me into arguing with her and doing anything but actually putting hands on me to escalate this into a physical fight. She even tries to encourage her kid to scream again, to which the kid just sat there quietly. I initially stare at her for a few seconds, then went back to ignoring her and the situation and went back to looking at my tablet. She continues having a meltdown for several minutes before the man with her collected her, the kid, their things, and went elsewhere. I felt bad for the kid, as I cannot see her future doing well with that sort of guidance. Also, it was a shame that the mother flipped out, as I likely would have given the kid wings that my company supplies us with after the kid calmed down. I don't get these type of parents. They let their kids do whatever they want, they get rambunctious and crazy in public and don't put them on a leash like they probably should, and then someone's like, "Hey, don't do that," and then they get mad, and then they intervene. It's like they're too scared or too stupid to, discipline their child, but they will discipline everyone else? Or something like that. I'm just interested in the psychology behind that, of just, being lackadaisical with your kids while they torment people, and then the second that your kid steps a boundary too far and someone's like, "Hey, don't do that," you're like, "How dare you? How dare you raise your kid to be horrible?" Karen. Anyway, next story. Story number 2. I, 28F, watched my male M33 best friend get married, and it's a mess. Hi everyone, I am 28F, who was in a relationship from 2021 to 2023. We broke up in December last year due to family issues. After the breakup, neither of us considered getting back together, and despite the breakup, I supported his family through some tough times, and his mother experienced a severe medical condition that required amputation, and I was there for them throughout all of it. Shortly after his mother was discharged, my ex broke his leg, and I continued to offer support. As things began to stabilize for his family, they approached me with the idea of reconciling. I politely declined because I knew I wasn't in a mental space to try again, and I also realized that joining a family that had previously treated me poorly might not be healthy for me. Even though we ended our romantic relationship, my ex and I have remained close friends. We don't go on dates or engage in any form of physical intimacy, but we do spend a lot of time together. I continue to visit his house regularly, where I have card game nights with his family, and we often go out to dinner together. My ex stays over at my place sometimes, but since I live alone in a big house, he stays in a separate room. He also has a healthy relationship with my parents and best friend, and we support each other, and I'm happy to return the favor. Our social and professional circles overlap significantly, so we've naturally remained connected. We work at the same company, and he occasionally gives me a ride to or from the office. He's also a regular at my game nights, and many of his friends are my friends as well. We've been civil about the breakup because it was a mutual decision driven by family circumstances, and there was no betrayal involved. Recently, I was on a long drive with someone that I had an on and off relationship with in the past, and during our conversation, he was surprised to learn that the person I've been spending time with is my ex. He mentioned that it felt normal to him, but it also made me reflect on how others perceive this situation. Interestingly, many of my friends who have met us together say that I've done a very mature job in preserving something important. They've shared how they've lost their best friend when their relationship ended, and they wish they could have found a way to do the same. Neither my ex nor I have any romantic feelings for each other, and we've both been through a lot of trauma with our families. We decided to preserve the friendship because we don't have many close connections outside of our shared circles. There's no flirting or anything of the sort between us, and our friendship has been purely platonic for the last 6 to 7 months. Most importantly, both of us are on dating apps and trying to meet other people. Both of us are serial people pleasers and don't like hurting others, so I understand where this dynamic comes from. However, it felt really weird when someone told me that this situation is abnormal. So I'm curious, are there others out there who maintain friendships with their exes because they don't want to ruin what they've already built? My ex and I are a great support system for each other, and we've often talked about how, even if things fall apart, we will always choose to remain friends because it takes a lot to share your life with someone all over again. Edit number 1. Thank you everyone for your lovely suggestions, criticism, and more. All I wanted to know was whether what I'm doing is normal or not. However, the feedback I received wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I anxiously scrolled through Reddit all day hoping to find some positive comments, and there were some, but most of you were telling me how I am wrong. I don't owe anyone an explanation, but I haven't had enough relationships to know what's right and what's wrong. In my friend circles, there are 2 couples who broke up and are now with new partners, and all of us collectively get along very well. Surprisingly, no one ever brings up the past. Maybe that's why they're so welcoming and not overthinking things. That being said, I am on all the dating apps, and my ex is trying to move on. The reason we remain friends is that we work in the same department, hang out in the same circle, and neither of us want to divide it. We didn't break up because one of us did something wrong. We broke up because our parents simply couldn't accept us being together anymore. This has left a deep wound in both of our minds. We've been abused by our families, asked to leave everything behind, and I don't even want to go into details about how insulting and demeaning both sides of our families have been towards each other. We could have cut all ties, gotten new jobs, moved cities, and tried to move on, but instead, we sat down one day, maturely asked each other if this relationship was worth sacrificing our parents for, and both of our answers were no. So we decided to never bring it up again. I don't have any feelings for him anymore, and he clearly doesn't either. Both of us are on dating apps, trying to meet new people. From what I've read in the comments, I believe that with time, everything will naturally dissolve. Currently, both of us are lonely, overworked, and trying to fix our lives, so we're okay with the situation as it is. As we move on in life, our communication will likely become less frequent. When his mom was in the ICU, I was there. When my pet was in the ICU, he was there. When he broke his leg, I helped him. When I got sick, he helped me. We are nice people. It's easy to tell somebody go to hell and move on, but we were raised to look out for the people we care about. Thanks to everyone for your advice, and I will maintain my distance, but cutting him off completely is something I won't do. Update. Hey everyone, I'm in a really tough spot and could use some advice. Here's the full story, so bear with me. I am 28F, and my best friend, let's call him K, 33M, and I have been super close since 2017. From the start, it was clear that we weren't interested in each other romantically. A big part of this was due to caste differences. He's from a higher caste and I'm from a lower one. He always made it clear that he wanted to marry someone from his caste, and I respected that. We had so much in common, and over the years, we built a really strong friendship. By 2020, we even became flatmates, living together in separate rooms, which made our bond even stronger. Towards the end of 2021, I entered into a relationship, but I kept it secret. I was at a peak in my career, and I didn't want any distractions or questions from others while I was trying to focus on my work. And although I hinted to Kay that I was seeing someone, I didn't explicitly tell him until 3 to 4 months into the relationship. My own trauma from past relationships that didn't work out made me hesitant to share until I was 100% sure about it. And when I finally told Kay, he was really offended that I hadn't shared sooner. However, despite this rocky start, my ex, Kay, and I ended up becoming an amazing trio. We were inseparable, hanging out together all the time, and we just clicked as a group. But things started to change in 2023 when Kay met a woman on a matrimonial website. Within just 3 meetings, they got engaged. This woman seemed perfect to him. She mirrored all his interests, from cooking to music to TV shows. He was completely smitten. However, he didn't tell me about the engagement until I accidentally found out when I saw an engagement ring at our place. When he finally told me, he said he felt pressured into the engagement, but I didn't push him on it. I just wished him well. After their engagement, I met his fiancée, and at first we hit it off, but then things started to go downhill fast. She suddenly became distant and refused to meet with me alone, saying she'd only meet me if Kay was present. I found it odd, but didn't make a big deal out of it, and a couple of months later, I went through a really tough breakup. I was also dealing with a lot of other things, recovering from surgery, going through extensive therapy, and a lot of medication. My engagement had just broken off, and I was living alone in my house. And with so much going on, I wasn't in any shape to be social. And as a people pleaser, I felt responsible for only interacting with people when I was in a good mood, not when I was at my worst. So I started to distance myself from her, thinking I'd reach out when I felt better. At the same time, I realized that Kay had a new person in his life, and based on everything I've read online, posts, reels, and articles, I knew it was important to give him space. I stopped hanging out with him as much, avoided overnight stays, and didn't plan any trips with him because I didn't want to be a hurdle in their relationship. I did my best to step back and let them build their life together. Honestly, Kay's wife has nothing to be worried about. She's smarter, more beautiful, wealthier, and far more educated than me. She's perfect in every way, and I have nothing on me that would make her insecure. However, despite my best efforts, things continued to deteriorate. Kay's wife started asking me to come over and chat when I dropped my pet off at their place. I had to leave my pet there when going to therapy or visiting my ex's mom in the hospital, but I was often in such a rush that I couldn't stay and talk, and she took this personally, thinking I was avoiding her on purpose. Things got even more strained when Kay's birthday came around, and I reached out to his wife to plan something together, but she completely shut me down, saying she wanted to handle it herself but would invite me later. It was awkward, but I respected her decision. Meanwhile, my ex and I were still close friends, decided to hang out since we weren't invited to the birthday. When Kay found out we weren't planning anything for him, he was upset, and his wife called us and we had to admit we were just out getting drinks. Sensing the tension, we quickly threw together a surprise birthday party for him, which he loved, but his wife didn't like how much he appreciated our efforts. After that, Kay confided in me that his wife had taken him to a hotel that he hated for his birthday, and that he wished she had checked with me first. This wasn't the first time something like this happened. Over time, he began to admit that his wife had lied about a lot of things during their courtship. She wasn't into cooking, music, or any of the things she initially claimed to love. He started feeling like he made a mistake by marrying her, and it didn't help that she began trying to control who spent time with them. She even gave him an ultimatum. He wasn't allowed to help me or my ex anymore and could only spend time with her. This situation was further complicated by Kay's own behavior. Whenever his wife was out of town, he'd come over to my place and make comments like, "My wife's out, so now I can finally play." And when she'd call to check in, he'd tell her he was hanging out with us, making it seem like we only invited him over when she wasn't around. This only made her more suspicious and negative towards us. She started expecting everything to go her way. She invited us to dinner a few times, but both my ex and I were going through our own issues and politely declined. She took this as a personal offense, never considering that if I wasn't visiting her, I wasn't inviting her over either, because I was dealing with my own struggles. It felt like everything was about how she felt, never about what I or my ex were going through. There were so many petty moments, too. For example, one time I had to leave dinner at their place early because my pet was sick. The next time I invited her over for dinner, she stayed exactly 2 hours and then left, clearly making a point. My female friends even warned me not to mention hanging out with Kay alone because his wife gets visibly uncomfortable and jealous. It's frustrating because I wish I could just tell her that I've had 8 years to try and make a move on her husband, and if I haven't by now, I'm not going to. Despite everything, I've tried to be considerate. When she was sick, I sent her a care basket, and she responded with a backhanded compliment like, "I never knew you guys were so sweet." And it felt demeaning because we were the closest friends Kay has, and she's acting like she's surprised that we are decent people. Every little thing feels like a power play with her, and it's exhausting. Recently, when I was discussing everything with Kay, he mentioned all the wrong things we've done to his wife, how we've isolated her and made her feel neglected. He also brought up how he's always been kind to my ex, which made me feel bad. I pointed out that my ex also put in a lot of effort to fix things between us. Kay then said, "So did my wife," and I tried to explain that it's different when you're living together and seeing each other every day versus when you have to commute, hang out for a few hours, and then go back home. While it wasn't the best justification, I tried to make him understand that when 3 people work in the same company, relationships are just easier to maintain. I also don't know how to explain to her that 7 years of friendship in the same company is a lot. We've traveled to 14 countries together, spent COVID together, and share the same tastes in movies and games. It's absolutely fine, and I've never been a roadblock in Kay finding his own relationship with his wife. I even asked my ex how he was okay with our relationship, and he said that he trusted me. He wasn't insecure because when someone says that there's nothing going on, you have to trust them. But he also added that not everyone sees things that way. In hindsight, I can see how this situation might look, but I really don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Did I actually do something wrong? Did I ruin my best friend's marriage? All I wanted was to give them space, be in a good mood when I saw them and not come off as a crybaby. I was never jealous or insecure about them being married while I wasn't. I just needed time to heal. To add to all of this, there are things I haven't even mentioned, like how my parents were begging Kay to take care of me when I wasn't in a good mental place, and he ignored it because his wife asked him to. Meanwhile, my ex, despite his mom being in the ICU and having a broken leg, stepped up to help me through everything. And for anyone wondering why I didn't reach out to other friends, I did, and they helped in their own ways. But my ex, despite everything that had gone down between us, was really worried and disappointed in Kay for not helping me. He even begged Kay to step up because he couldn't due to family dynamics and what his mom was going through. I'm sorry for the long rant, but I'm feeling stuck and helpless. Should I step back and let them figure it out, or did I ruin my best friend's marriage by being way too involved? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Edit number 1. For good or for bad, thank you so much for your comments. The first thing I think I should do is cut them off completely from my side while I am at fault. I also think that my best friend threw me under the bus to maintain a great relationship with his wife. He conveniently managed to talk crap about his wife to me to keep me on his side, and talk crap about me to his wife to keep her on his side. Also, the first thing that I did was to avoid him, and somehow it skips people's minds. And surprisingly, I realized just now he never did the same, and I got in a relationship. He never gave me my space for the first time. Instead of hating the wife, I'm hating my best friend because he is the reason behind this. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "You may not be the person that is trying to make a move on your ex or Kay, but you have to understand Kay's wife and your ex's future wife are not going to accept it as easily as you wish. When you are friends with your ex, any partner will have issues and their concerns are valid because there's history between you two. You might argue that the partner has nothing to worry about because you called things off, but that doesn't fill the partner with any more trust, simply because they don't know you. You said you were distancing yourself after Kay got married, but you were still taking favors from them by dropping off your pet at their house and stuff like that. Either distance yourself properly or completely stay around. You are distancing them when it's convenient for you. This might be the reason why Kay's wife is mad at you. Another example is that your mom calling Kay when you're sick. Why do this? If you have distanced yourself from them, then don't use them when you are in need of help. The biggest problem I see is that you are not thinking of how your relationship with Kay and your ex will be perceived by Kay's wife and your ex's future wife, and even your own future husband. According to you, there's nothing to worry about, but that doesn't make the concerns go away altogether. So, about the dog thing, it was co-adopted by Kay and I've only left the dog over there 5 times over the course of 6 months. And that only for 2 hours for anything, which is more than that I have for a sitter. And of course, there are times when other friends have taken care of the dog. Continuing, I was sick because I tried to end my life by overdosing myself on the pills, which were recommended to me by my therapist. My parents were going through something and they needed some time before they could move, and that's why they asked him to look out because they did not know anybody else. I have already understood the part where I should not be friends with my ex, and I've already figured that out, so I don't need a moral judgment over there. I think one of the biggest reasons I distanced myself first is because I realized that if a friendship sounds unreasonably personal, and no sane person would be okay with it, and trust me when I say that the times I've reached out has been the only favor I've asked. Now, it might sound very easy for you to say that, why did you not ask anybody else for help? But when you have 5 people in your contacts, this is all you can do. And had I been mentally at a good place, I would have taken care of myself, but I was not. But the moment I got a hold of my life, which was back in April, I stopped talking to them. I stopped hanging out with them. I would only meet them when it was required. That is, my promotion, or when they asked me to come over for dinner, or of course the birthday. I never tried talking, never tried asking anything when I learned she was sick. I sent a care basket. I got her a doctor's appointment. I got her test done. I did whatever I would have done for my best friend, because to me they are both one entity, and I have to look out for them. I am a decent human being, and if you're a part of my life, I will protect you at any cost, but not at the cost of my mental health. So whatever I could do from a distance, I did it. Then user 2 commented and said, "Okay, thanks for sharing more info. The disconnect is that they feel you only stay in contact when you need some help. They don't understand your hot and cold behavior because they don't know when you are mentally healthy and when you're not. From their perspective, things were normal and suddenly you decide to distance yourself. After some time, you came back with care and love, but they don't understand why the sudden change in behavior. From your perspective, you are dealing with your own issues, which affects your behavior. From their perspective, they can't gauge when you will be around and when you might disappear. Both are valid in their own place.
So, my advice, either completely cut them off from your life or learn to reciprocate when they need you, regardless of how you are feeling. If I was part of your life and you acted all supportive at one time and disappeared the next time I needed you, I wouldn't understand why. I can try to be more accommodating by giving you the benefits of the doubt if you continue to show different behaviors based on the current state of your mental health. Then obviously that won't sit well with me. Which I think is pretty fair, because if you are allowed to prioritize your mental health, then I as a friend should be allowed to feel however I want to protect my mental health.
So, that's the thing. They know everything. They know about my marriage being called off, my attempt at taking my own life, my parents not being there, and my isolation and my mental health. I actually went out of my way to inform his wife in advance that I will be taking some time out to focus on myself, and I will come back to you and be the best friend that I can be. But what has happened is that she grew very impatient very quickly, and the cherry on top was my best friend's behavior as well, where he would come to my house without my consent and hang out and then portray this image as if I am having fun. Whereas that's not the case. The first thing that I need to do is leave their lives out completely and let them focus on their own. I didn't insane healing on my own, and I want to focus on that. And to be very honest, if somebody can leave you at your lowest of low, then they are not your best friend. Not anymore. And I'd rather focus on better things in life, rather than digging the same old grave knowing that there is a dead body inside, which is just rotten more and more. Then OP replied to a comment about her and Kay doing things together before marriage and said, "Surprisingly, the problem has not been that we have done these things together. The problem has been that he conveniently hits those things, and he did not make me aware of it and must have meeting over. I, by mistake, ended up mentioning, and she just got offended now that I look off. Both of us, the women, are not at fault. And also, there is nothing wrong in asking close friends when it's an arranged marriage. Also, I feel bad for his wife too, and I also feel bad for the role I played in this whole mess. That's the thing, they know everything. They know about my marriage being called off, my unalive attempt, my parents not being there, and my isolation and mental health. I actually went out of my way to inform his wife in advance that I will be taking some time out to focus on myself, and I will come back to you and be the best friend that I can be. But what has happened is that she grew very impatient very quickly, and the cherry on top was my best friend's behavior as well, where he would come to my house without my consent and hang out, and then portray this image that I am having fun, whereas that's not the case." Then user 3 commented and said,
I think people don't understand that after marriage, their friends have started a new phase in life and things aren't going to be the same. My advice, distance yourself from both Kay and his wife. Let them deal with their own thing. Don't be Kay's therapist and don't mingle in their marriage. It will only come back to bite you. Focus on your own life and your own goals and stop playing judge. Also, not sure why you have kept your ex around for so long. What's going to happen to this friendship when he gets married or you get married? You think your partners are just going to be okay that you are still friends? Of course not. I think it's time you reevaluate your priorities in life.
"I think you're not reading this post properly. I have kept my distance. All this while, she got upset with me for having the distance as well. I don't want to be the therapist here, and I don't like he confides in me. I don't like he criticizes his wife, and in fact, I've actually pointed out a lot of his negative behavior. I've already once posted on Reddit about being friends with my ex. I have been canceled and abused and already won round, and I have already called things off with him, so you don't have to worry about that aspect. And as a woman, I am very respectful about other women. I will never create a situation in which other women is fighting with her partners over me. That's the reason I chose to distance myself before anybody even asked." And then user 4 commented and said,
Yeesh, reading this was exhausting. I can't actually imagine living this life. I don't think you ruined their relationship as much as they're going down their own spiral of toxicity. My suggestion would be for you to be confrontational and to just distance yourself from the mess if they're not willing to acknowledge. Your friend needs to know that he can't trauma dump on you and has to kind of sort out his own problems with his wife. If he has to lie to hang out with you, it's a crappy relationship.
And finally, user 5 commented and said,
Could not complete it at all. Just a case of desperate and weak people with weak boundaries. No shame in being weak, it's like being injured. But when injured, one should practice caution, aka strong boundaries, which isn't the case here to regain health. This case is like an injured person trying to CrossFit. Many lives and relationships have gone sour, and I hope readers here take a note.
Update number 2. While walking away from everything might seem like the easiest option, I decided to take a different approach and clear the air. First, I reached out to Kay's wife and apologized for any hurt I may have caused. I explained the reasons behind my behavior, which she surprisingly wasn't fully aware of. She knew some things were off in my life, but not to the extent of it. And to my relief, she not only forgave me, but also apologized for her hostile behavior, admitting that she felt insecure after my breakup. We both acknowledged that a single female best friend can be intimidating, but I assured her that I have no intention of being a work wife or a pick-me girl. Instead, I expressed my genuine desire to be friends with both of them. I also had a conversation with Kay, and I told him that our friendship was starting to feel very one-sided, with him coming only around when it suited him. I made it clear that it's his responsibility to take care of his marriage, especially if his wife feels insecure, and that it's not fair to paint anyone as the villain in this situation. In the end, I bid both of them temporary goodbyes, encouraging them to focus on their marriage. It's a new chapter for them, and they need to work on it together without me in the middle. I also realized that I can't let my past friendships define my entire life. The last 7 to 8 years have been great, but it's time to look forward. I need to consider how a future partner might feel about my relationship with a male best friend. As for my ex, I've asked him to stop looking out for me and let me navigate life on my own, even if it means stumbling a few times. And to everyone who left positive comments, thank you. And to those who offered negative feedback, thank you as well. Your perspective helped me see things from a different angle. A giant bandage has been ripped off, and it's like shedding old skin. No friends, no ex, no boyfriend, no drama. I have my whole life ahead of me to fix, and I'm genuinely looking forward to it.
Okay, I've got some things I want to say about this story. First off, if there was a sentence that didn't sound right to you, it's because OP's English skills just deteriorated over the course of this story at some points. I don't know what happened. But as for this story, I'm going to be honest, I just wanted this one to be over. It was just messy, and it reminds me of something else going on with a friend of mine who just will, not take advice. Like, what do I do? And we tell him. Then 3 hours later, what do I do? And then we tell him. And then the next day, we tell him again. So this just reminded me of that. And I hate that, even though I should be a supportive friend, and I am, but it's like, take the advice, And I always say that I will always applaud somebody for trying to improve themselves, and thankfully OP did that, because at some point I was like, it was so messy, and I just stopped caring that I was just like, just cut this out. Cut these people out. Move on. Go to Canada or Italy or something. I don't know. I didn't care. I'm sorry. I just did not care about this one, but it ended in a good way, and that's what really matters, all right? I really think she just needed to shed and be rid of herself of all of that baggage. And also, there was her mentioning that her and her ex couldn't be together because of the family, and that was never unpacked, and I was kind of curious about that, but I don't know. Next story, let's go.
Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for asking a customer's kid not to touch something? Throwaway account, cause I literally made an account just to ask this. So, I, 24M, work at a popular fast food restaurant. I've been working here since this location opened, and I love working here. I like my coworkers, my boss is great, and I've never had any problems with customers. Until today. So, we have a self-serve drink machine near the front of the store, and today a family of 3 came in. A mom, dad, and their daughter, who looked about 4 or 5 years old. I was the cashier for the day, and the dad came to take their order, while mom went to sit down at the benches we have at the door to scroll on her phone. Their daughter, however, made a beeline for the drink station. Noticing the daughter about to stick her hands inside the spigot for the iced tea, which is separate from the soda machine, I calmly said, without raising my voice, "Excuse me, little one, could you please not touch that?" Well, mom looked up from her phone and immediately got defensive and yelled at me, "Don't yell at my child, I'm right here, you could have just gotten my attention." Now, look, I get it. Stranger danger and all that. Don't want strangers talking to your child. However, I needed to stop her before she actually touched it. It's a health hazard. People get drinks out of that. And I don't know where your daughter's hand has been. Your entire family just came from outside. She could have had peanut butter residue or something on her hands, and the next person to drink out of it would have went into an anaphylactic shock. And I didn't raise my voice. I used a gentle voice just to get her attention and to not contaminate the spigot. Well, I apologized to the mom and explained the above, minus the outside part, and she, however, isn't having it, and yells at me again that she's right there and not to speak to her child. Dad is right there at the register, just waiting for this to finish so I can take his order. So I apologized to her again and turned to her husband to take his order. And as soon as I turned to her husband, she's back on her phone, now with her daughter sitting next to her, hand around the shoulder. So, am I the a-hole? Should I have done something differently? Anything? I've already told my boss, and after they left, I still disinfected and sanitized the spigot, even though I stopped her before she touched it. I felt like if I did it while she was still there, she would have had another meltdown. Update. Thanks everybody for your feedback. While it may seem obvious I wasn't in the wrong, I was doubting myself, since this was the first time I've witnessed someone get so defensive over their child doing something wrong. Just the other day, we had a kid climb up on the table after not listening to his mom, but when I gently told him to get down, and did, mom thanked me. So the other lady's response kinda surprised me. So, today is my day off and I just got off the phone with my boss, and I'm not in trouble, and she reassured me about that. She called to tell me that the mom came back and tried to complain. This is secondhand from her, so some of it might not be accurate. According to her, the lady came alone and tried to file a complaint that I screamed at her child and frightened her. I am so glad the restaurant has cameras with audio, so my boss played back the incident for the mom to watch, and the boss said she had to max out the volume because she almost could not hear me over the generic music we have playing in the store. And after the video played, the boss says to the lady,
"So, you want me to punish my worker for stopping your kid for messing up all the iced tea? Because if he hadn't and she successfully did so, I would have made you pay for all the iced tea she ruined."
And let me tell you, she would have. My boss is a short, middle-aged black lady from the South, and she knows how to insult people and make it sound like a compliment. And don't worry, she doesn't use this power for evil. And not to mention, we had just made that tea, so the container was near full. The container holds about 5 gallons. My boss then said the lady got wide-eyed and backpedaled hard on her stance and told her to thank me on my next shift and left the store. Then she called me since she thought the whole thing was ridiculous. And now, looking back on it, I kinda agree. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my day off though, and maybe stop by the store and buy my boss something nice.
Ah, yes, a short, compact, distinct story with clear and easy to identify characters and a narrative that doesn't have my head spinning. I love it. And also, it's just thematically overlapping with the first story. Karens. Please don't tell me Karens are the theme of today's video, because Karens never win. I hate Karens. Everyone hates Karens, let's be honest. But I feel like OP doesn't work at McDonald's. Too easy. Yes, they have sweet iced tea and all that stuff, but I feel like OP works at Bojangles or Popeyes. That's what I'm getting Bojangle Popeyes vibes. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. New update to my husband's open marriage suggestion backfired on him. My husband, Leo, 34M, and I, 30F, have been together for 7 years and married for 4 of them. We don't have any kids, and we don't intend to. 2 years ago, Leo asked me for an open marriage, and I was devastated at the time. I couldn't understand why he didn't just want me. I couldn't even comprehend the idea of sharing him either. And he gave me the same song and dance that a lot of men give their spouses, swore up and down that he loved me. I just wasn't fulfilling his needs. He needed more than what I could give, and it was just time to spice up our life. It was just sex, etc., etc. I did ask if there was someone else, and he said no. And to this day, I'm still not sure if I believed him. But at the time, I was angry and hurt and said no. He pestered me to change my mind for a week before giving me an ultimatum about open marriage or divorce. I chose the open marriage, and I just couldn't bear the thought of him leaving me at the time. And we have rules. We can't bring any partners home, we have to get tested for STDs every 3 months, and 1 weekend out of the month must be left for us time, and any money we spend on or with our partners must come from our personal accounts. I didn't partake in the open marriage myself for the first 3 months. Leo obviously did right away, and he seemed to be gone or out late almost all the time. But he always acted so happy and loving towards me while I felt like I was dying inside. It killed me to think that he was sleeping with other women, and I felt so lonely and unattractive and not good enough. And I told my sister, Katie, 26F, and a few close friends everything. Well, Katie told me to just play his game and be a part of the open marriage too. If he can sleep around, so could I. I honestly didn't have much confidence in myself at the time. I'm a bit overweight and I've never considered myself conventionally pretty, and I was afraid this would just humiliate me further. Katie and my best friend Jesse, 30F, set me up for an online dating profile, and I got so many matches that it was overwhelming. When I told Leo, he was surprised but told me to do whatever I thought was best. Jesse helped me choose my first date, and I actually had a great time. He didn't pressure me for sex and took me out to drinks and dinner, and we did have sex eventually, but it was all just casual, and we didn't see each other after a couple of months of casual dating. That first guy really made me feel more confident in myself, so I kept going on dates with men. A lot of them wanted to treat me, so I didn't have to spend much of my own money. Not only that, but some of the men have given me the best sex I've ever had in my life. Almost like the kind of sex you read in romance novels. It's been amazing. I am currently seeing
two different men alongside Leo. One, Mark 38M, is more of a steady boyfriend I've been with for about 6 months, and one, Steven 25M, is very casual, mostly just hanging out and sex. They know about my open marriage/other relationships and are fine with it. My husband has not been so lucky. In the beginning, he definitely was. He was always out and about and didn't seem to care even when I started dating too. But now, he just complains a lot and hasn't been going out much. He whines about how he's usually the one spending money. A lot of the women he tries to be with want emotional connections before sex. He often wants to be with younger women, but they want younger men. He's also been upset that I go out with random guys so often while he's at home alone all the time. He hasn't asked us to close the marriage yet, but I feel like he will soon. He keeps saying he misses us and wants to spend more time together. And he tried to initiate sex a lot more too. He wants us to go on dates and go on vacations and all that stuff more and more, and he gets upset when I tell him I can't because I've already scheduled to do stuff with my partners, mostly Mark. Honestly, I don't think I love Leo anymore. I care about him, but I just don't love him. I'm not saying I love Mark or Steven, but I honestly feel closer to Mark nowadays than I do Leo. Mark makes me feel comfortable and safe, and I love spending time with him more than my own husband. Steven is funny and sweet and really good at sex. Katie and Jesse have been wanting me to divorce for a year now, but I was afraid of hurting him and thought I still loved him. But I think my love for him died when he asked for this open marriage in the first place. Seeing him get all pissy about it now just because he's not benefiting from it is also a turnoff for me too. But I don't know if divorce is the best option. I still care about him and still don't want to hurt him. Maybe if he finally asked to close the marriage, we can talk about it then. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Divorce. You're happier without him. He would only want to close the marriage because he can't get laid, not that he only loves you.
We've just been together for so long that the idea of him not being there feels weird, which sounds stupid since I have 2 other partners, so it's not like I'll be lonely, but Leo was a part of my life for so long that for him to not be there just doesn't feel right. But you're probably right. Then OP elaborated on her husband dismissing her feelings regarding the open marriage and said, I really do think Leo does love me, in his own way. Even when he was more active in the open marriage, he still made time for me, and still did a lot with him/for me, but you've probably got the right idea on the divorce. Then user 2 commented and said,
Part of the issue is the main relationship is supposed to be the important one, so the whole 1 weekend a month for us time wasn't enough.
I actually did argue that in the beginning, but he insisted that he needed to keep his weekends free. He did spend a lot of time at home during the weekdays, so in his mind, that made up for it. And finally, user 3 commented and said,
What if he finds evidence of your open marriage and frames you as a cheater and then takes you to the cleaners? At this point, I wouldn't trust Leo. What you're experiencing is normalcy. You're used to his presence in your life. But how long are you going to live like this?
Jesse actually had the same train of thought as you and actually took screenshots of his dating profiles during the beginning of the open marriage. She also told me to save screenshots of any text messages we had about the open marriage. I don't think Leo would do that, but I also never thought he would ask for an open marriage, so what do I know? Update. Hi everyone, I got so many comments and messages on my last post, which got deleted for some reason, that I was a bit overwhelmed, especially when a lot of you kept saying the same thing, divorce, divorce, divorce. But the thing is, I think a part of me does still love my husband. I know in my last post that I didn't think I loved him anymore, but I just can't forget about the things that I do love. I love when he sings in the shower. I love when he laughs so hard, and he snorts. I love when he kisses my forehead when I've had a bad day. I love when he holds my hand when we watch TV together. Leo has done a lot of crappy things, but he really isn't that big of an a-hole as much as people think he is. Maybe that was my fault. But even if I do still love him, I'm not in love with him anymore. I don't think I have been for a while. I care about him, and a part of me still does love him, but you were all right. I should have just divorced him when he gave me that ultimatum in the first place. This past Saturday, we had the big talk, and I initiated it, but he didn't seem too surprised. I just told him that I noticed he didn't seem to like me going out with Mark or Steven, and I asked if there was a problem. He said there was. But he didn't ask me to close the marriage. He just asked me if I still loved him, and I said something like, not like I used to, and he broke down crying crying, which made me cry, and I guess he had known for a while that I wasn't in love anymore, but he had hoped he could win me back if he funneled all of his energy into me. I was honest and told him that during those first 3 months of our open marriage, I think my love for him died, and I just couldn't get it back. I did tell him that I still cared about him and that I did love him, but it's not the same as it was. He asked me if I loved Mark or Steven, and I said no. I like being with them and I care about them a lot, but I can't say I'm in love with either of them. I also finally asked him why he wanted the open marriage in the first place. A lot of you in the comments said he already had someone lined up, and you were right. He had someone at work and he was interested and she was interested in him too. And the open marriage was just to get permission. He honestly never expected me to also get my own partners because of how unconfident I was. But he didn't want to stop me either because he thought nothing would come of it. He didn't really like seeing me with other men, but he knew it wouldn't have been fair to tell me no when I gave him permission first. I guess Mark and Steven made him insecure because I was spending so much time with them on a regular basis. The open marriage was just sex on the side for him. He only did hookups and they never lasted long. He genuinely always just loved only me, but he thought I was falling in love with my partners and he was losing me, and he wanted to win me back. We cried a lot and talked a lot, and we decided to get a divorce. Since the house is in his name, I'm going to move out and live with Katie for a while. He told me I didn't have to and I could stay until the divorce was finalized, but I just can't. It's too hard to even look at him sometimes. I don't know how I feel, to be honest. I thought I would be relieved or sad, but I'm just tired. I wish I could have been like you all wanted me to be, clapping back or being sarcastic and snarky or rubbing it in his face, but I don't feel like I've won anything. I just feel lost. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "I'm wondering if maybe the other woman ended it, so now he was back to what he was comfortable with. His wife? He went and had his fun, and when that died out, he was not left with a wife waiting for him at home. He and his coworker were only sleeping together for maybe a month. She fulfilled his kinks that I never liked indulging in, and that's why he was with most of his partners, because I wasn't interested in his kinks." Then user 5 commented and said, "He stepped out of this marriage first and tried to have his cake and eat it too. The thing with open marriage is that you can never count on how emotions will change. Sex is a very intimate action and many people will develop emotional connections. Those connections come at a price. He placed a bet and he lost. At least he's man enough to acknowledge it and owns up to it. There was no easy answer, OP, and I wish you healing." Thank you. Leo just thought the open marriage would be a way for him to get out all of his kinks that he couldn't do with me because I wasn't into them. And he knew how unconfident I was, which wasn't because of him. A lot of other people seem to think that he eroded my self-esteem, but he didn't. We can thank my mother for that, but that's a whole other can of worms. So he never expected me to partake in the open marriage either. And finally, user 6 commented and said, "He never expected you to partake in the open marriage either, you say. So basically, while he asked for a mutually open marriage, he expected it to be only his side open and then got hurt that reality did not meet his expectations." Leo admitted that he did only expect his side to be open. He was never going to stop me from opening my side. But like I said, he didn't think I would. To be honest, I don't think I would have either if it wasn't for Jesse and Katie pushing me and making profiles for me. Update. Hello, it's been a while. It feels like both a lot has happened and nothing has happened. I still have a lot of feelings, but I'm also just really tired. Leo and I are still in the middle of our divorce. It's been as amicable as a divorce can be, and since we mutually agreed to it and we had a prenup, it's been pretty easy splitting everything else 50-50. My lawyer says I should be divorced by the end of the year, and Leo is insistent on giving me alimony, but I'm not really interested. And thanks to a lot of people making me think about Leo's explanation for the open marriage, I did approach him about it again and asked him to be 100% honest with me about that girl from work. He admitted there was more to it than he admitted. This is what he explained to me, and I have decided to believe him. Even if he's lying, it doesn't really matter anymore since we're getting divorced. I also just have little energy to care about the details at this point. But according to him, this is the timeline. First, he was posting on Reddit about his kinks for advice and such, which I did know about beforehand. Then he was getting messages from this one user, and they just kept talking back and forth. He mentions my name to the user in a connection, which he let me read. Then during his lunch break, his coworker, I will call her Mary, approaches him and asks if he uses Reddit and asks about his username. Then he confirms and Mary says that they've been talking to each other all along. After that, they start talking more and more in real life as friends, and eventually start talking through Instagram. He has also showed me these conversations. Then, the conversations were mostly just memes and jokes with occasional flirts and mentioning of kinks, and at one point, she says, "It's too bad he's not single." And this is when he decided to demand the open marriage, because Mary was clearly into him and into the same kinks, and she could sexually satisfy him since I was unable to. That's how he basically said it anyways. And truth be told, we did have some bed difficulties before the open marriage was brought up. I'm very vanilla, and he discovered his kinks after we were married. I tried them all for him, but I just couldn't get into it, and he didn't like seeing me struggle, so he didn't try to bring them into the bedroom again after it was obvious I didn't like it. So we did have sexual compatibility issues. Maybe we were doomed to fail even without the open marriage ultimatum. Our families, outside of my sister, were shocked when we told everyone we were getting a divorce. They always thought we were so happy and in love. My mom blames me, which I expected, but it still hurts. And they don't know about the open marriage, and Leo and I plan to keep it that way. I think he is ashamed to tell them. I am too, if I'm being honest. I really thought Leo was the love of my life, and he was my first for almost everything. I said we were together for 7 years, but we were friends since college. I've known him for nearly 12 years, and we're about to become strangers soon. I still mourn my marriage, even though Katie and Jesse keep telling me this is for the best, and they're both definitely thrilled. They don't hide it, but they also know how this has been a weird time for me, and I just don't know how to feel. I thought I would feel free or relieved or heartbroken or something, but I just feel weird. Like I lost a part of myself, and I don't know how to get it back. I'm still living with Katie, but I'll be moving out soon. I found a 1-bedroom apartment that's near Jesse's, so I won't be completely alone. Mark offered to let me move in with him, but I declined. Honestly, we're kind of on standby. He knows I'm having a hard time processing my feelings about my husband and the end of my marriage. I think he wants us to be official, but I don't know. I really do like Mark, and I don't want to lose him, but I feel like I need to figure myself out first. As for Steven, we ended our relationship at the beginning of August. He got a job offer in another state and took it. Even though it was casual, I did cry a little. Steven is a great guy, and whenever he does decide to settle down into something serious, the woman who gets with him will be a lucky one. We've been texting here and there, but it's mostly just sending each other TikToks and polite, "Hope you're doing well" messages. Also, some people asked me if I wanted to get back to monogamy, even after experimenting, and clearly getting into this poly relationship I had going on. And the answer is yes. I do. Even though Mark and Steven were great, and I met plenty of great guys during my open marriage, I don't know if I've really been happy with myself or my choices. I also think I felt guilty a lot too, like I was somehow cheating on Leo, Mark, and Steven, even though it was all consensual. Polyamory and open relationships may work for some people, but it's really just not for me. Jesse says I need to get a therapist, and I have tried looking, but finding a therapist that's both available and seems like a good fit is a pain. Hopefully I can find one by the time the divorce is settled. I also want to figure out what to do about Mark on my own. I don't want to lead him on and give him false hope, and maybe we should take a break, or maybe I should just tell him to break up with me. He should find his own happiness without worrying about me. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "You're numb. It happens when you lose your partner and you're grieving, and under a great deal of stress. I think Reddit as a whole takes divorce really blithely, but I read once that divorce is one of the most stressful life events right after death of a loved one. And I'm slightly curious, you say your family is shocked that you're divorcing because you seemed so in love, but the fact that your friends are delighted you're leaving your husband tells me they've witnessed some not great relationship dynamics?" So, Katie and Jesse were the only ones I told about the open marriage, so they're glad it finally ended in divorce. None of my other friends or family members know. Then user 2 commented and said, "I read all of your posts, and I don't know why you're still protecting your ex by not telling people what he bullied you into doing. He had the girl all picked out and wanted your approval so he could cheat. Tell the damn world. I would have. You have nothing to be ashamed about. Don't let your mother put the blame on you. You need a therapist who will build your self-esteem up." I just feel embarrassed I let it get to this point, I guess. I probably should have just gone with the divorce when the ultimatum was first issued. And finally, user 3 commented and said, "I'm glad you are healing. It sounds like Mark wants more than you can give him right now. Focus on healing and finding out who you are outside of this marriage. It's sad that your soon-to-be ex ruined a loving marriage for kink sex, and I'm glad you are divorcing. You deserve better. Definitely get therapy. It will help you navigate the next part of your life."
Oh, look, another story about a relationship where partner 1 wants an open marriage, partner 2 doesn't. Partner 1 offers an ultimatum, partner 2 reluctantly accepts. Partner 1 has his initial fling, ooh, and partner 2 is like, hey, let me try this out. Then, like every single time, after 3, 6, 12 months, it flips. Partner 1 ain't getting none. Partner 2's getting it all up in that. And then partner 1's like, well, you know what? I kind of want to close the marriage. I miss us, you know what I mean? I had fun, but I miss. Get that out of here, bro. If you start closed and then transition to open, it's not going to work like almost every single time, at least on this channel. But I have to ask you guys, though, do you feel like OP should put the ex on blast for what he did? I don't know if she necessarily needs to or if she should, but like, he gave her an ultimatum. But she was saying like, oh, the marriage probably wasn't going to last. And, I don't know, but he had a partner picked out. I'm going to have to think about this one, but I'm curious what you guys think. But I really don't know, so I'm curious. Anyway, next story.
Story number 5. Fiancé announces she is bisexual after a solo trip to a wedding. Plus, new update. Betty, 27F, and I, 30M, got engaged in January after dating for a couple of years. Our plan was to get married next year when we had saved enough money for the wedding. Shortly after getting engaged, we moved in together at the end of January. In May, Betty was a bridesmaid for one of her friends. I was unable to attend due to my job and the fact that it was a 5-day trip. Betty had a great time reconnecting with some of her old friends, but a couple of weeks after she got back, she became moody and withdrawn. I was relieved when she made an appointment with a therapist since she hadn't opened up to me about what was troubling her, and after about 5 or 6 sessions, she sat me down one Saturday morning so we could talk. Well, Betty had been raised in a very conservative household and had to suppress her desires until she moved out to go to college, and even then, certain ideas she denied and refused to embrace. At the wedding, she was introduced to the wife of one of her girlfriends from college, and it triggered a lot of repressed desires over the days that they all hung out before the wedding. She told me that she felt romantic and sexual attraction to women as well as men and realized she was bisexual. I told her I was happy she finally felt safe in sharing this with me, and it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a very emotional moment, and she asked me how I felt about her exploring her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I said I was open to exploring it with her and possibly having a threesome with another woman to let her have that experience. But she wanted a one-on-one experience with another woman and felt she couldn't do that with me present. I told her that sounded more like an affair and something I wasn't comfortable with. I asked her if she wanted to cancel the wedding and maybe separate while she figured out what she wanted to do. She was adamant that was not what she wanted, and she was still very much in love with me and still wanted to get married, but she felt like she had to explore these feelings that she was embracing before we settled down together. I asked her if she had done anything inappropriate at the wedding and cheated on me. I asked if she had someone in mind or had been talking to someone since she came back. She admitted to dancing with a girl at the reception and they kissed at the end of the night, but nothing else happened, she said. She denied talking to anyone or pre-planning anything. She knows that this was a lot to throw on my plate all at once, and she didn't expect an answer right away. She just asked that I kept an open mind and keep talking about it. I couldn't promise anything, but I agreed to do some research and talk to a workmate that has an open marriage to see how they cope. And I did warn her if I found out she lied or was doing anything behind my back, there would be no second chances and I would leave. Well, my workmate has been super helpful and open about their relationship, and my brother got me into a support group that has helped me come to terms with our relationship changes. I'm burning my way through my second book and sat Betty down Thursday night to check in and talk about moving forward. I found us a couples therapist. I gave her the book I'd finished and I told her we should postpone the wedding for 6 months and then decide if that's the path we are still on. I was on a roll when she stopped me and asked me if I was planning on dating other people, like that never occurred to her that I would be dating as well. She kind of shut down after that, barely giving one-word answers when I would ask her something. I think the longest sentence I got was, "I just don't know." She has been like that for 24 hours now, like she's lost in a fog, and I'm just bracing myself for the inevitable flood of emotions. I would have thought she would be happy that I was considering opening our relationship. Edit. By the way, my brother came out as gay when I was 16 and my parents were very supportive, so I grew up in a very different household than my girlfriend. Update. Saturday night, her fog lifted and things got pretty heated. She said that the open relationship was my way of punishing her and being vindictive by dating other women. She was just asking for some grace to explore her feelings, and I replied that she showed almost no remorse for cheating on me and instead expected an open-ended hall pass to do so again. I also told her that our friends had told me that she asked them not to say anything about what happened at the wedding, so I would probably never know the full truth and just had to accept it was worse than what she admitted to. And I asked if she thought it was fair to have sex with other people while I waited by the door like some lovesick puppy who was expected to just wag his tail when she decided to come home and show me some attention. It devolved after that, and some hurtful things were said by the both of us. And I finally gave her 3 options if she wanted to move forward. 1. Monogamy. Postpone the wedding and go to couples counseling. No experimenting. When we get to a good place, then go ahead with the wedding with a prenup to protect me if she changes her mind and or cheats again. 2. Open relationship. We can both date who we want and she can figure out her sexuality on her own terms. In a year or so, we can see if marriage still seems like a good option if we are still together. And 3. Full separation. She moves out and we can each be free to live our lives as we see fit. If/when she decides she wants monogamy with me, and if I haven't moved on, then we can try option 1. But it would be a new beginning, not just picking up where we left off. She decided she needed some space to think things out and is going to stay with friends for a couple of days. I told her before she left if she accidentally cheated while she was gone to not come back, unless it was to pick up the rest of her things. This morning, I got a text from her that said, "I'm so sorry," and she didn't answer when I asked her what she meant, and my call went to voicemail. I'm not going to reach out to her again, and I will wait to let her contact me when she is ready. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Looks like your partner has been a bit self-centered about this. Good idea to take your time regarding your engagement. The death of exclusivity, even as a hypothetical, can be a pretty destabilizing factor for an established mono relationship. Keep talking. You seem to be handling this very well. Somewhat better than her, I think.
I tried to handle this respectively, but it seems fair to her that she gets an open pass, but I don't. I'm expected to support her while she has sex and possibly develops feelings for someone else, and I'm supposed to just smile and nod. And then she got upset when I had to remind her that she was the one who cheated. I just finished printing out cards to send to everyone that we sent these save the date notices to, advising them that we are canceling the wedding. Not sure how I'm going to respond when they start asking why, and the cards I'm sending out just have "due to new circumstances" on them. Then user 2 commented and said,
If the person asking is part of the group who withheld information from you, consider telling them the truth, that your fiancé cheated on you and her friends colluded to keep it from you. Consider telling that friend what you think of them for not having your back at such an important moment.
I had that conversation with the friend who confirmed what Betty had told me. When I questioned him later, he said Betty had made them promise not to tell me on the trip back home. He and his wife and one of the other bridesmaids were the only ones that saw them kissing, and he also told me who the other woman was, and she lives in a different state. Update. On Wednesday, Betty went to her previously scheduled appointment with her therapist and told her what happened between us. Not sure what all was said, but she called me on the way to her friend's house apologizing for some of the things she said and wanted to come home and talk things out. I told her to stay at her friend's house tonight and think about what she wanted, and then she could come home Thursday and we could sit and work things out. On Thursday, we met at the house and talked over dinner. We both apologized for getting heated and saying some unfair things to each other. And after talking to her therapist and having several conversations with her best friend over the last few days, she has decided not to explore her bisexual urges. The idea of a truly open relationship where I was free to sleep with other people terrified her, and getting married was more important than chasing the rainbow. Her original idea had been just a free pass to see if she was missing something in her life and how important it was to her. I asked what she was asking for was an ons, just dating a woman or having a full relationship. She couldn't tell me exactly what she wanted. I said that didn't sound very monogamous to me or fair, and she agreed, and that's why she was giving up on exploring those feelings. Next, she brought up the notes that I sent out canceling our save the date notices for our wedding day, and she said she was getting all kinds of calls about what happened and was caught unaware about what they were talking about at first. She was upset I did that without talking to her first. I reminded her that she lobbed 2 grenades into my lap, coming out as bisexual and that she cheated on me, then left and wouldn't talk with me except for a cryptic "I'm sorry" text message, followed by silence. While I never said anything other than we were having issues and had to postpone the wedding, evidently there was speculation that she had cheated on me. She switched gears and said we could still get back on track and get married next spring, but no, because now when one of us is out of town, my mind will be thinking about you cheating again, especially after coming out and wanting to have an affair to explore your sexuality. I said maybe after couples therapy we could get back to a good place again, but not by the end of the year. and it would be foolish to start planning and making financial commitments before we even knew if therapy was going to work. Plus, I wanted a prenup to protect everything I brought into the marriage as well as my future retirement savings. Plus, she would forfeit any equity we bought a house for. And when she protested, I said if you plan to be faithful and not change your mind later, then it would never be a thing. Just something to give me some peace of mind. It's been an ongoing conversation for the last few days, and Betty wants to rug sweep the incident at the wedding and move forward with our wedding. Exploring her sexuality is not worth sacrificing our relationship, in her opinion. But for now, we are back together and planning on counseling soon. In a post-clarity moment, I realize I rushed to embrace the idea of an open relationship to allow Betty the freedom to explore her new feelings, and I'm not as willing now to consider that option. I think separation is the better option. Breaking up, if you will, till we both decide what direction our future lies and if it is with each other. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend the next 3 to 5 years together only for her to change her mind or cheat on me one day. Then OP elaborates on the chasing the rainbow comment and said, chasing the rainbow was her analogy, not mine, and I didn't have a problem with her sexuality. The problem I had was that she cheated. Granted, she only made out with someone and wanted permission to have sex with someone else, but male or female, that is unacceptable in what I thought was our monogamous relationship. Being bisexual doesn't give you the right to have sex with someone else while you are already in an exclusive relationship. It just means you are attracted to twice as many people. And I do want to be with her and support her, but that doesn't mean I support her dating other people to explore her sexuality while in a relationship with me. Then OP elaborated on the best scenario probably being breaking up and said, most of the scenarios in my head end up in disaster. Breaking up and letting her find her center might be the best option. If in 3 to 6 months we find out we both want to start over, then maybe it stands a better chance than us trying to just move forward the way we are now. But in 3 to 6 months, I think I will have moved on to something less complicated. The fact that she thought I wouldn't be enough and had to go experience something different to fulfill herself could be a deal breaker for me. And then OP made one final comment and said, we have counseling scheduled to see what is best for us. Until we firmly resolve this issue, we won't be getting married. I don't want to have to deal with cheating or her wanting to open the marriage up years down the line and then possibly getting divorced. New update. What a crappy week. Counseling started badly. Walked into the office and saw a large pride flag on the wall. Our therapist was very biased towards my girlfriend's predicament, glossed right over the cheating and into how I needed to better support Betty's awakening and support her journey to blah 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 blah. Betty is the one who is confused, and I'm not giving her a safe place to explore who she is. Nothing about my feelings or needs was addressed. To make matters worse, when the therapist was piling on me, I looked to Betty to stand up or say something positive for me, and I got nothing. That part hurt me the most, and I pretty much shut down for the remainder of this session. And towards the end, the therapist did try to engage with me because you could tell she knew she had completely lost me. On the drive home, Betty tried to talk to me, and I gave her the 3 answers I kept repeating to the therapist. Sure, nope, and maybe. This was the therapist her individual therapist recommended us to. The next day, I got a call from Betty's mom at work wanting to know why we were postponing the wedding and that her family and friends had already started making plans. I told her she needed to take that up with her daughter. She kept badgering me until I finally told her Betty made out with someone at her friend's wedding and that was why things were on hold. And then I hung up on her. Less than an hour later, I got a call from Betty demanding to know what I told her mom. Less than an hour later, I got a call from Betty demanding to know what I told her mom. And I said you kissed someone at a wedding and we were trying to work through it and that I didn't mention Betty coming out to me. I told her she needed to sit her mom down and tell her the whole truth, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So, I get this text message from her mom telling me I need to suck it up and move past this, and that I might even be at fault for not going to the wedding with her. Huge text giving me what for and trying to tell me what I need to do. I showed the text to Betty when she got home from work and said she needed to do something about her mom or I would enlighten her with the full story of all of her problems the next time she tried to tear me a new one. Betty said she would handle her mom and made me promise to give her some time to tell her mom everything. Also this week, Betty has gotten very protective of her phone. Yeah, major red flag. And I went to charge my phone and unplugged hers to plug mine in, and she almost flew across the room to practically snatch her phone out of my hand. I was able to sneak a look at her phone later while she was asleep, only to find out she had changed her passcode, something which she hadn't done since we had been together. I went online and looked at our phone bill, and there were many lengthy calls to a Colorado area code, which I have found out is where the girl she kissed was from. I am just mentally exhausted at this point. The gaslighting, the lying, and just feeling like I am treading water all the time. Lately, when we've been intimate, there is a lack of passion in her that was there before all of this. I feel loved bombed without the feeling. It feels like just hollow words and empty gestures. Tomorrow, we are going to a cookout at her parents' house, and I'm going to try and keep my cool and not say anything, crossing my fingers. But when we get back, I'm telling Betty I'm done. I'll give her the choice of keeping the apartment or moving out. She will be free to explore and find what truly makes her happy, but it just won't be me. I came clean with my parents and a few friends about this whole mess, and my tribe is ready to help support me and help with the move when I need them. Dad vetoed Mom's offer to help me move back in and said what I really needed was a new puppy, definitely too old to live with my retired parents. It feels weirdly peaceful now that I've made up my own mind. And to all of you who told me so, you were right. Time to move on with my life. Then in the comments section, one user said,
I'd be tempted to leave a review on the therapist somewhere. Something short like, my fiance cheated on me at a wedding and continues to call the person she cheated with. And this therapist told me I needed to support my fiance's exploration of other people, rather than addressing the betrayal. Or something like that. At the very least, I'd want to make sure the therapist knew this would be why we wouldn't be coming back. Therapists can't improve without knowing they've effed up. And I guarantee you, this therapist effed up. Anyone in your personal life that you tell about the infidelity, I'd recommend clarifying that it wasn't just a one-time thing, and that she continued to call and have an emotional affair with the person. I'm sorry, OP, that your fiance is literally actively having an emotional affair right this very moment, and the therapist you were sent to was the wrong choice. I wish you luck.
Thank you. I like your review, but I am unsure where I would post it. Our therapist definitely had an agenda, but if we don't show up for the next session, she already knows the reason. After browbeating me for most of the session, she realized I checked out and spent the last 10 to 15 minutes trying to get me to re-engage. She tried to shake my hand as I left, but I just silently got up and left her office. I haven't confronted Betty about the phone calls yet, but I plan to ask her about them tonight before I tell her we are done. My family and friends, who I told yesterday, knows about everything, including the calls. For now anyway, my stress levels are surprisingly low now that I know what I want to do. My sister will be at my house when we get back and plans to stay at least the night while I tell Betty my decision. Update number 3. Betty and I returned early from a cookout at her parents' house. I had planned for my sister to be at our house when we got back as a witness, but had to wait a couple of hours for her to show up. I got us all in the living room and told Betty I couldn't do it anymore, and was throwing in the towel. I said I had lost all trust in her, and couldn't see a way forward, and that the best choice was to just go our separate ways. Betty could not understand what I was saying, and said that she had been honest since her confession about what had happened at the wedding, and I asked her if she had been in contact with the girl that she kissed at the wedding, and she denied it. I asked to see her phone, and she refused, saying it would violate her privacy and the privacy of the people she had talked to. Fine, so who did you call with a 720 area code? And maybe I should call and see who answers. Doesn't really matter because it proves my point. I gave her a choice of moving out or staying, and I would move out. I also said I would give her what she had contributed to our savings account for the wedding. She tried to get my sister to leave or get me alone to talk, but I told her I had been advised to have a witness present just in case. And she went from crying to being angry, and after an hour and a half, she finally had a calm conversation about everything. We talked until almost midnight. This morning, Betty decided to move back to her parents temporarily, and the three of us packed up her things. While we waited for her dad and brother to come get her things, she tried to get me to go to a different counselor and give therapy another chance, but I said it was just a waste of time. I could never trust her again, and that was no way to live. So, not much of an ending. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
Bloody hell. It's so hard to believe that your wife continued to lie to you to the very end. Can I ask that once she calmed down and talked to almost midnight, did she ultimately tell you the truth and confess everything that she's been doing since that kiss? If so, how on earth did she try to justify all the lies that she's been telling you? Or at least tell you why she's lied to you all this time?
She's my girlfriend, not my wife, and she never did completely come clean. I think she is holding on to that hope that I will change my mind. She's confused and conflicted, and if she told me the truth, then I think she is afraid I would leave her for sure. Her words were, I only hid things to protect your feelings. Then user 2 commented and said,
Have you spoke to her dad and brother or the friends that covered for her to see what she's been telling them and what they think of everything? I'd hate for her to paint you like the bad guy and claim this is all because of the kiss and not because of everything else.
I did not talk with her brother or her dad when they came over. The friends that covered for her know almost everything from my point of view. Betty hasn't talked much with them since the wedding, and the husband was especially upset that she had remained in touch with the woman that she kissed, and his wife has been consoling, saying it was lucky I found out now rather than later. Then OP elaborated on trying to save the relationship and said, At first, I thought this was just a speed bump, something we could get past, but it became a sinkhole that just got deeper and deeper. I believe her first therapist got her started down the wrong path, but in the end, she just became selfish and self-absorbed, which really turned me off. It kills me to think that she threw away what we had and all the plans we had made. It was like she became a completely different person in such a short time. Then OP elaborated on his relationship with her parents and changing the locks and the friend group and said, I had a great relationship with her family. It went south with her mom when I postponed the wedding though. Her mom was all wrapped up in planning the wedding and was almost too involved. So, when I pulled the plug, she took it hard, almost personally. I got everything changed but the locks, and I'm waiting on the landlord for that though, and definitely calling some friends after this. Most of my core group has been pretty solid throughout all of the drama. Then OP elaborated more on cutting back the friend group and said, no, not completely. They are a part of a larger friend group. I kept my distance but try to remain polite. The rest of the group knows that they kept the secret from me, and they've gotten some grief over it. They both have been remorseful and have supported me as things have played out. The wife was friends with Betty and still talks with her quite a bit. And the husband and I were really close, but I don't engage much with him anymore unless it's in the friend group setting. Then OP made some more comments and said, I dropped a box with some things of hers that we missed and some of her mail at her work today. She wanted to talk and possibly meet for dinner to talk, but I told her we just need to move on and I left. I've blocked her on everything and just want to put everything behind me. Then OP made one final comment and said, well, she is gone for good. All of her stuff is out of the apartment, and she got her part of the money we were saving for the wedding. I've blocked her on everything and have no plans to contact her again. I don't need closure, apologies, or explanations. She's made several attempts to reach out to me through friends and at work, and the people at work know not to bother me and don't even take the messages from her anymore. And the friends I politely tell why that I won't take her back, well, they understand and drop it usually. But I've had to block a couple of people who keep after me to talk with her, but I'm not doing that. So we read this story somewhat recently and we got a new update and we're reading it again, and I said last time that I was thinking if this is even going to continue, they definitely needed to, take a break or get that distance. I don't know if I said that they should leave and just break up outright, but definitely now I totally agree. OP made the right choice. Just like that story that I did not like earlier, I was just like, cut it out and move on. Sometimes it gets so messy that it's not worth untangling. And for the most part, OP was not the one contributing to this mess either. It was the girlfriend. And he had tried to help clean it up, but she just kept going behind his back and lying and making it messier. And he's like, bro, come on, I just cleaned the floors. What do you mean you colluded and snooted and kissed her? God! Anyway, good for OP, and that's it. Simply, he made the right choice, and here we are, and now he can move on. Next story. Story number 6. My coworkers are engaged, but one of them is cheating with my boss. My question is regarding a rather sticky situation that I am unwillingly involved in. In short, I think I'm living in an episode of The Office. I have 2 colleagues who are about to get married to each other. Let's call them Joe and Kate. Unfortunately, I know for a fact that Kate is having sex with Peter, who is my direct manager. It's an open secret in the office that Peter and Kate often go on work trips together, and everybody knows, except Joe. This isn't speculation because about a month ago, Peter and Kate were gone, but there was a deadline to meet. So Peter joined one of our meetings via video and we saw Kate trying to sneak behind undressed. Fortunately, Joe wasn't in the meeting. He's in a different team. And I'm wondering what exactly I should do here. Morally, I am against cheating. But also, and I can't stress this enough, I just don't want to deal with the mess of all of this. However, the wedding is approaching and I have received an invite. And I can't in good conscience go to this wedding when I know what I know. I feel a moral compulsion to tell Joe, but is it even my business? Should I even get involved? Other than this mess, I generally like my office and my coworkers. I am paid well for my role, and other than this less than stellar attitude towards sexual fidelity, Peter is a good manager who has my back. My industry is quite niche and my skill set is specialized, so finding another job won't be an issue. But I am comfortable here and really don't want to switch. But every time I see poor Joe around the office, the guilt consumes me. I am so anxious about this that my appetite has reduced, and my husband and I have seriously started looking for a therapist to help me deal with this. Update. Thank you so much for responding to my question. I couldn't really respond to any of the comments on your post, but I read them and really had a good think about everything you said and what the commenters were saying as well. I'm here to offer an update in case any of you readers may be interested. Spoiler alert, it's explosive. As for clarification, HR was kind of a joke in my former company. They didn't do anything but perpetuate gossip. No such thing as anonymous complaints. Peter and Kate were in different departments, by the way, so think sales and accounting. So, the good news. A few days after I submitted the letter to you, I ended up submitting my resignation. I start my new job next month. So far, my coworkers seem nice. We've had one casual hangout/mixer organized by the new workplace, and everyone brought food. My brownies were a hit. But anyway, my new company had been trying to poach me for a while, and I just decided to take the plunge. And I truly can't tell you how happy I am to be away from that mess. And now I've just been relaxing at home. My former coworkers, though, keep me updated about everything that's happening, and safe to say, I left at the right time. Bullets dodged. So, Peter was blindsided by my resignation and asked me why I was leaving and if there was anything they could do to keep me, but I refused. And I was willing to serve my notice period, but Peter said it wasn't necessary and I could leave immediately since I clearly thought I was better than them. It was in that moment that I realized I had been telling myself Peter is a good boss, but he clearly isn't. Even your advice touched on this briefly. So, I cleared my stuff out by the end of the day, went home, and cuddled with my dogs. Since then, Peter's boss contacted me, asking me to at least serve my notice period, and I only responded by sharing Peter's last email to me, where he threatened to have me escorted off company property if I wasn't gone by the end of the day. The grand boss proceeded to call me to convince me to come back, and in a rare moment of wanting to be confrontational, I told him I wouldn't feel comfortable coming back because of many reasons, not just Peter's rudeness. I told him all about Peter and Kate. I told him my former company simply didn't have adequate safeguards, so even if I wanted to report this nonsense, I couldn't without being afraid of retaliation. My former grand boss clearly wasn't ready for my verbal diarrhea, and he said he would call me back, but it has been blessed silence since then. Now, on to the actual update, aka what is going on with Peter, Joe, and Kate. The day after I left, Peter and Kate left for another business trip. However, when Kate returned home, she realized their house was empty, completely bare. It would seem Joe had been aware of the affair for a while, and instead of confronting Kate or Peter, he'd been lining his ducks in a row so he could just up and disappear. He resigned by email, no mention of a notice period. No one knows where he is or what he is doing, and Kate apparently tried to file a missing persons report, but Joe had already informed the police that he wasn't a missing person. At the same time as Kate came home and realized Joe is gone, his entire family also blocked all forms of communication with her. She tried to show up at Joe's parents' house, only for his parents to claim they don't know her. They never knew her, and if she didn't get off their property, they would call the police. I know all of this from my coworkers who know all of this from Kate, because she can't stop talking about it at work. She doesn't know why Joe would have done this. And a few days after that, she also dumped Peter in a rather public, unhinged way, saying that he hypnotized her and her life was falling apart because of him. But apparently, it didn't stick for long because the next day they were having loud and very physical sex in Peter's office during lunch hours. There are rumors circulating that both Peter and Kate are about to be fired. Not sure why they haven't been fired already. And some of my former coworkers have asked me if I could keep an eye out for jobs for them in my new company. So, that's it. Thank you all for your love and compassion.
Are Peter and Kate stupid? They banged at work very loudly. Like, what did they think was gonna happen? It's already bad enough that they were cheating, but they were bad at cheating. Like, God, they just suck all around. L's for everybody. Literally, everybody at the office knew that they were cheating with each other. Then at the end, we learned that Joe knew all along. And then he took everything inside of the house. He took the couch, the TV, the dog house. He lifted up the fridge over his shoulders and said, "This is mine now too, you suck." I don't know. What else is there to say? Cheaters are stupid, OP's got a new job, Joe's out, and they're gonna get fired, and they can have loud sex wherever they want. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. I proposed and my girlfriend said yes, on the condition I get her a different ring. So, I proposed and my girlfriend said yes on the condition that I get her a different ring first. Before I-28F proposed, I spent a lot of time looking online and in stores for the nicest ring I could afford, and I ended up with a 1-carat Asher solitaire. My girlfriend, 29F, doesn't like the ring and wants a different one, and all of the ones she has shown me are bigger and more expensive than I can afford. She said she'll accept my proposal if
I give her a different ring, and it can be a do-over because she said she was also a little disappointed I proposed at home and didn't do anything special. Truthfully, I'm kind of hurt she cares so much about having a bigger and expensive ring. I want her to be happy and have a ring she likes, but she is so fixated on how small my original one was, and I really don't feel great about it. Honestly, my heart broke when she said no. Edit. As I said in my post, her complaint about the ring is that the diamond is too small. For the proposal, I recreated the exact meal she cooked for me on our second date and proposed on our balcony, with candles around us and her favorite scent. And I hope this answers any more questions. Update. I told my girlfriend if she prefers a different style of ring than the one I got her, I could get her a different ring, because I obviously want her to love a ring that she would wear every day. I would either keep the original ring as my engagement ring, because she made it clear she isn't getting me one herself, or I could return it and put the money towards her new ring. The ring I had bought was the biggest one I could afford, and her complaint was that it was so small, and the other rings she showed me as examples of what she wanted were more expensive than I can afford. I admit, it led to a few arguments because everything was above the amount I told her I can afford. She suggested I get a temporary side job to save more money. I've said it would take me a couple of years to save for what she wants, but she says if I love her, I'll find a way. I'm not opposed to another ring, but we are on opposite sides regarding the budget. As for the proposal, it was also not what she wanted. She wants a public proposal, and I misunderstood when she said she wanted something special. She didn't say public, and I didn't infer it. Now we are both aware of what she wants at least. I just want to thank everybody, though, for their support and nice thoughts. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep the original ring and wear it as my engagement ring yet, or return it, because it will barely make a dent in the amount my girlfriend wants for her ring. I don't even know how or if I am going to save for another ring. Truthfully, this whole thing has put a damper on the idea of being engaged for the time being. But thanks again, everyone. Update number 2. So, I had decided to keep the ring to be my ring because I was unable to return it and would have lost money if I sold it. I was trying to find a solution, and my girlfriend was making suggestions. I thought we would work it out, but about 6 months after my last post, my girlfriend left me for a colleague. She said the affair started after I proposed. Last I heard, they were still together and either were traveling over in the United States. When my girlfriend left me, she took most of our things, and I had to start my life over pretty much. It was difficult. My family stopped talking to me when I started dating women, and they don't support same-sex relationships. I did receive a lot of support in both of my posts, but there was lots of negativity as well. The majority of the messages I got were negative too. Many people missed that I am a woman, even though I said it in my posts. I received many comments and messages about how men don't understand how important the ring and the proposal are to women, and even those who did not mistake me for a man said that my proposal was low effort, the ring was terrible. My proposal was called out for being terrible as well, and most of the messages I got mirrored the comments I got about putting in more effort or being a better partner. There were some insults too, and a lot of them said they felt sorry for my girlfriend. I have learned from this experience. I'm not in a relationship now, but if I ever do find someone, I'll make an effort to be a better partner. I did want to post one more update to thank the people who posted nice things, and to say that I've learned from this experience and have taken to heart all the comments and messages about being a better partner. So, I am kind of baffled with how this story ended regarding OP's mindset. Let's rewind to the proposal. I think, yes, the proposal and the ring are important, but she clearly can't afford it to the point where it would take her years with a second job to give the ring that the ex wanted from OP. And, she was being rude about it. And the way she was responding, I just saw red flags. I don't know if this was like an abusive relationship or a power dynamic or anything like that, but then OP's girlfriend just left her for somebody else and cheated. And I wasn't surprised about that, just given the information we have in the dynamic. And I wish we read some of the comments because what the hell's going on here? And on a budget, I gotta say the proposal sounded romantic enough. It was sweet enough. It's a nice gesture. I know everybody has preferences and stuff like that, but just I didn't get the vibe that OP was a bad partner. And then the ex said, yeah, I'm not even gonna buy you a ring. She just didn't sound like a very nice person. But I don't know. I felt like the outcome here was weird. I don't know if OP was just hyper fixating on some particular comments. Then there's the stuff with her parents. I don't know. I don't feel like, given what we've read on this channel and given just the few details in OP's mindset, I don't feel like that was a healthy relationship. I'm willing to bet it was not. Anyway, next story. Story number 8. Sellers are charging us £1,000 a week every Friday we don't exchange. So, for those who don't know, exchange in UK property purchases is the point at which the signed contracts are exchanged between the solicitors and the deposit is paid to the solicitor and the purchase becomes binding. This also sets a specific date that completion, the actual transfer of ownership of the property, will take place. Until this point, the buyer and seller can pull out at any time for any reason whatsoever, even if this is months into the purchase with thousands of pounds spent on surveys or solicitors. Now, onto the actual post. So, they've made it retroactive from 4 weeks ago. Admittedly, it's been a long process, but we haven't done anything to purposefully slow it down. Everyone we know who has been through this in England understands how effed up the system is. So, I'm struggling to understand what's so unique about this situation. The seller put an arbitrary date in and gave the tenants notice, so is charging this amount claiming to be losing money. Never mind the fact that we're paying more for the property than they paid for it a few years ago. Anyway, there's no way I'm agreeing to this and want to pull out on principle because this situation has soured us on the property and has made me mistrusting of the seller, not to mention angry. Has anyone been in a situation like this? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Call their bluff. You have no contract, so they can't charge you anything. And for them to add it to the house cost will invalidate your mortgage offer. And they'll lose more than 1K a week if you drop out. It's all nonsense anyway. I assume you understand they cannot charge you anything. Even if you get to exchange, you can just refuse, and then it's up to them to pull out or not. If they only just gave tenants notice, you can't exchange? They have 2 months to leave, and they also aren't losing any money. So by not serving notice till late, they're holding up their own sale. What is holding up the sale currently? Either way, you just go nah and probably look for other places if you're close to exchange and just call their bluff anyway.
the tenants are now out. That's their issue, but they based it on an arbitrary date that wasn't agreed to by anyone else. The main holdup was waiting on things being issued by our local and notoriously useless council. Then user 2 commented and said,
Oh, and if they're contacting you directly, redirect all communications via your solicitor. I never spoke directly to my seller, as I assume your solicitor would also laugh at them claiming this and explain how it works. That's what you pay them for.
It's coming via the estate agent, and now via our solicitor who notified us of the $4,000 pound retroactive hike. Then user 3 commented and said,
You should respond immediately via solicitor that you refuse this stipulation and will pull out of the process if this issue is not dropped. For me, this is a major red flag seller.
That is my instinct, but I'm wondering what else we should be worried about. Every day it feels like there is something else. And finally, user 4 commented and said,
Honestly, I'd pull out just to spite them. That's a horrifically crappy way to treat someone that's trying to buy a property.
That's where I'm at, but I'm trying to figure out if I'm being overly emotional, and therefore not rational. Update. As expected, the sellers have backed off after we informed them that we're pulling out of the sale, offering up the originally agreed upon price. But we've taken the evening to consider it, but are feeling conflicted about what to do now as we feel a considerable amount of mistrust towards them. Everyone's comments yesterday gave us lots to think about, and it was helpful to see people expressing the outrage we were feeling. The house is not perfect and needs work we wouldn't be able to afford for some time. Also, I was recently made redundant, and while I have no doubt I will one day work again, I do understand the job market is not robust at the moment, so things will be inevitably tight in the new house until I am working again. Maybe these pricks have done us a massive favor. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
Well done, OP. As I said before, they effed around and they found out. Good luck with the job hunt.
Then user 2 commented and said,
No, make them wait until Monday and then walk out.
And finally, user 3 commented and said,
Instead of walking away, drop your offer by 10K due to the stress that they caused. At least then, you might have a chance at getting it at a discount as a result if they're desperate. If not, then blessing not dealing with a seller like that.
Update. This morning we told the EA that we were willing to proceed, but our offer had now reduced by 10K and that they could take it or leave it, letting the agent know that we were unwilling to negotiate further. 3 hours later, they accepted it and we've now exchanged. I'd like to think it's taught them a lesson about the difference between entitlement and leverage, and not just made us more cynical. We tried to move through this process with fairness and integrity, and I think all parties involved mistook that for a weakness. And well, in the end, they reaped what they sowed, and we can feel a little better about moving into our first real house. Then in the comments section, one user said,
What a ride this was. Glad you came out of the other side with some extra change in your pocket. And very well played, and the seller got exactly what they deserved. Well done.
Then user 2 commented and said,
Ha, brilliant. The scalpers didn't even realize they didn't have the upper hand and ended up effing themselves over. You love to see it.
And finally, user 3 said,
Seller's wife is going to be so angry at her husband. Can you imagine for the rest of that bloke's life, she's going to be on him about this. Devastated.
Final update. It's been a week since completion and we're now settling in nicely. No sign of intentional sabotages besides the place being left in a state, and certainly nothing a deep clean hasn't fixed. The house is already starting to feel like home as we very gradually unpack. Thank you to everyone for the encouragement, advice, and support. I got to feel like a bit of a folk hero for a moment, and I know that'll be a cherished memory and a story I'll be dining out on for some time to come. Wishing you all good outcomes like ours, and never underestimate the power of saying no. And also remember the golden rule, don't be a jerk.
So I admit this story was a little too British for me to understand at first, but having struggling and rereading it a little bit, I understood the story. And you know what? It's just a classic case of real estate being horrible sometimes. But I am glad that OP decided to take that one commenter's advice and try to get it for $10K lower, because they said, hey, we don't need to legally pay you $1,000, or pardon me, 1,000 pounds a day until we settle this, so you can go F yourselves. But, since you're probably desperate, we'll take the house for $10,000 less. And they said yes because they're stupid and greedy. You can be smart and greedy. You can be stupid and poor, but stupid and greedy, well, you know, you don't last long doing that. Now OP's got a house. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. My husband's job convinced their truck drivers to vote out the union. The company's leadership team said they will do everything to make sure their employees are treated right. Almost every single one of them came into this company after retiring from UPS with all wonderful benefits that the union got for them after 25 years of service. None would be where they are now if it weren't for the union. As a former union member and leader, this breaks my heart. They sent in an email to everybody that said, "You did it! Several weeks ago, many of our drivers bonded together and signed a petition stating that they no longer wanted to be represented by the IBEW Local 1430. Then, on April 11th, one brave driver filed a petition with the NLRB asking for an election. The company then worked with the NLRB to protect our drivers' rights to vote in a secret ballot election. Before the election, our drivers spent a lot of time getting the facts to understand their rights before making this important decision. Last Friday, May 3rd, the NLRB had a secret ballot election in our test kitchen. 105 drivers voted, and by a vote of 72 to 33, our drivers voted against union representation. Our drivers decided to put their trust in the company and our local leaders instead of continuing to pay dues to Local 1430 as their representative. Our drivers are now union-free, and you no longer have to pay union dues. While we are proud of our drivers for learning the facts and making an informed decision that continuing to have Local 1430 represent them is not in their best interests, it is now time to put your full trust in our company and leadership team. We will not let you down. In the coming weeks and months, managers and leaders will continue working closely with you and working hard to create and execute a plan of action to earn your trust and address your concerns. For those 72 drivers who voted no, thank you for your vote of confidence in our company and leadership team. That says a lot about our relationships. To those 33 drivers who voted to remain involved with Local 1430, we will do our best to earn back your trust. Please know we are all on one team and need to focus on how we can keep improving our culture and operations together. We are committed not only to listening and taking action on the feedback from our drivers, and also reigniting the culture and values in a way that resonates with our drivers. We highly value our drivers for their talents, skills, and the tenure that they bring to work every day. And that's what the email said. This breaks my heart. Then in the comments section, one user said, It makes me wonder how effective union leadership may have been.
Then user 2 said,
Honestly, it's more likely an indication of how dumb and gullible your average truck driver is. I used to have to interact with these people for work, and it's insane that we entrust these people with massive machines. For some odd reason, HVAC and truck driving seems to just attract the bottom of the barrel dip crap. Seems to be the trend on Reddit too. If you see a brain-dead far-right conservative take, it's going to be someone who's also active on trucker subreddits half the time.
Then user 3 commented and said,
A ton of union workers listen to anti-union conservative propaganda, and they think they'll be better off without the union. I'm in a major union plant, and you see Trump and Let's Go Brandon gear everywhere. These people permeate the membership roles, committees, and leadership positions. Our unions are under threat from within, and our local union Facebook page is a stream of conservative content or replies.
Then user 4 commented and said,
Putting trust in your employer is some top-tier foolishness.
Then user 2 replied and said,
The OP says that almost every driver at this company are retired UPS drivers. Probably the 72 that decided to leave the union, they already have full Teamsters benefits and pension, so F everyone else. They don't want to pay union dues because their pension and paycheck aren't enough. Just another case of the senior members screwing the younger members.
Then user 4 commented and said,
Putting trust in your employer is some top-tier foolishness.
Then user 5 replied and said,
The OP says that almost every driver at this company are retired UPS drivers. Probably the 72 that decided to leave the union, they already have full Teamster benefits and pension, so F everybody else. They don't want to pay union dues because their pension and paycheck aren't enough. Just another case of the senior members screwing the younger members.
I have to reply and say, not drivers. The management team is made up of retired UPS drivers, 25-year tenure, who have their full benefits and health care. They brainwashed a lot of the immigrant drivers to vote the union out. They'd speak to them in their respective languages and literally just have them nodding their heads. And finally, one user commented and said,
It would be a real shame if 33 drivers went out and found new jobs. I'm gonna bet a nickel that the 72 other guys are gonna pull the "you gotta do extra shifts for no overtime" and say, "we're a family."
Oh, that is definitely happening. Hubby has 2 interviews already lined up this week. Update. I said it from the beginning. They were going to start letting people go for BS reasons and hire people at lower wages. My husband, who voted against the company's interest, was let go today. They can now terminate you at will. The reason for letting him go, you may ask? Complaining about the working conditions, since they got rid of the union. Edit. Since I guess maybe I didn't write it correctly, my husband, who is pro-union, voted against the company asking to remove the union. He voted against the best interest of the company. And if you read my previous post, you'll see the company letter they sent when they asked truckers to trust them. Edit number 2. Let me explain. When the drivers voted, the results were literally divided by old employees to new hire. The company knew who had voted to retain the union. My husband is friends with the former steward, who's also a driver, and the guys were having a lot of route scheduling and other problems. And yeah, once or twice, or maybe thrice, they lamented loudly that they missed the union due to the lack of support they now had from the company. All of those guys have been slowly let go. We lost a route, which is a lie. You're not keeping up like we need you to, while giving the employees extra customers and complaining when they don't get back to base early enough. Not qualified any longer? No pints, DUIs, or tickets? Yeah, BS, but that's New York City. Then one user commented and said,
Hope he can find a union shop for his next job.
Oh, I am on it. I'm a union girl all the way. Then user 2 said,
If they actually gave that as a reason, there might be a case for wrongful termination, especially if the working conditions were in violation of any law. Also, due to that, he might be eligible for unemployment.
They didn't say that directly to him. They're dumb, but not that dumb. But everyone knew. They started getting rid of the drivers that were making a lot of overtime. They had restaurants on routes that only wanted the experienced drivers, as they didn't have to watch what they did or put things. They went in and usually had to help the inexperienced drivers with theirs. Literally, they have maybe 10 drivers that have been there longer than my husband now. The company employs over 150 at this location. Now, most of the new guys are leaving as soon as they see how hard it is. It is a revolving door of employees now. He can collect, but it'll never be the same as his take-home was, plus the medical benefits that we just now lost. And finally, user 3 commented and said,
So, they voted to dissolve the thing that gave them collective bargaining power to willfully submit to their employer's arbitrary whims? And they fell for that?
Yup, the letter they gave my husband when the vote passed up is on my previous post. He worked hard with the steward and the longer employed drivers, but the new hires were like, more money in my check. It's a whole mess. Story number 10. New update to my 28F fiance 29M wants me to put his family before mine, even at the expense of my family's health. Throwaway account, as my work friends are on my main and they don't know that this is going on. So, I 28F got engaged to my partner of 7 years Rob 29M in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Now, earlier this year, my sister, Kim, 32F, got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at a high risk of a perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye did not hold, and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with Rob's brother. Kim's wife was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad. So, when Kim called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at the hospital on her own. I immediately spoke to my boss, and he let me go early so Kim wasn't on her own. I texted Rob to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kim his love and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Kim was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Kim. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued, or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make the dinner, and I texted Rob to let him know. He flipped out though and basically told me to leave Kim at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the operation was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kim's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mom and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kim and to let her know how the operation goes. A dinner can be rescheduled. Kim's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally as understanding. I stayed with Kim, and her operation was a success, and I got her back home at around 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered some Chinese food and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home until about 11 p.m., and Rob was already asleep. Rob was very short with me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight where he told me I should have put his brother and family before Kim. He said he was embarrassed going to the meal without me, and I responded that I was embarrassed that he thought I would put a meal before my sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and we sorted it out. Or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kim got her graft, and so far everything is going really well with it. On Saturday, his brother was there, so we went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kim was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eyeball. I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home, and he got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kim's health issues, and I shouldn't have shown them the picture. I argued that they had asked about her, and they asked to see the picture, but it ended with him telling me that I needed to put him and his family before Kim, or else we weren't going to work. His family will come before mine once we are married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and I packed a bag, and now I'm at my mom's house, and he's been bombarding me with text messages and calls since I left. I do love him, but I will never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family's needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and mom, and that's not going to change. So I don't really know how to move forward or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? Update. Thank you so much for everyone that commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. And warning, this is going to be a lot longer than the original post. A lot has happened. So, once I decided to end things with him, I knew that the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I own the house outright. My grandma died 5 years ago and left her house to my mom, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought my house with that money about a year after she died. I got in touch with my stepdad's friend, who is a landlord, the day after I wrote my original post, who then put me in touch with his solicitor. He didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we did have a phone call where he gave me options. In the UK, we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice, and the solicitor said this would be the quickest way to get him out. However, he could try and contest it if he wanted to, which would lead to court dates and could take months. I asked him to drop the notice and date it for Friday the next day. I'd already made the decision to end things with him after work on Friday so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning, I texted Rob and asked him to meet with me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed, and not only is the pub a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work for a few pints, so I know he would be there to stop him if I needed him. Thank you, Reddit, so much for suggesting this, and I also picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break, so I was ready to give it to him. It cost £250, but it was worth it. When I got to the pub, Rob was already there and my stepdad was stood at the bar with his workmates. I sat down with Rob and got straight to the point. I told him that it was over. I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for his. It didn't matter what excuses he could come up with. I wasn't interested. I'd made up my mind, and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour, but was probably only a minute or so. And then he started crying, saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years, and I was throwing it all away. I could never find another guy like him. And I responded to the last comment with, I don't want a guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I need someone who's willing to support me when times get tough and not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice inside and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. Then I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who had bought me a much-needed drink, and I stayed with him until my ex left, still looking in shock. I knew he wouldn't approach me while I was with my stepdad, as he's always been a little scared of him. This is obviously a very condensed version of what happened, though. Once I got back to my mom's house, I had a single text message from him saying he wasn't moving out and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. We are not over, was how he ended the text message. I just turned my phone off and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. There was nothing else I could do. Saturday morning, I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying that he would move out if I paid him £10,000, as that's what he'd paid towards bills whilst he had lived at the house. He paid for half the electric, gas, Wi-Fi, and Sky package. Note, the Sky package is only as expensive as it is because he has to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for the sports channels. I'd already asked the solicitor about this though, and he assured me that I didn't owe him any money as he hadn't contributed to a mortgage or any renovations of the house. It was just general expenses. He also knew that I do not have £10,000 just lying around. Anyway, I was irritated by this and decided to ring his mom to see if she could talk some sense into him. I will call his mom Sandra to make it easier, and she was appalled by what I told her and said she would speak to him. She called me back about an hour later and asked me to meet at the house. Rob was on an away day to watch his football team play and wouldn't be back until about 10 p.m., so I knew he wasn't there. Well, I met her at the house with Kim, and Sandra said that Rob's brother was on his way back home, and they would have Rob out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to Rob, just his brother, but she promised he would be out. Sandra then asked me to walk her through the house, showing her what exactly was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning, I got a text from Rob calling me all the names under the sun for getting his mom and brother involved. Well, I blocked him a couple of hours later, and Sandra texted me to let me know he was out and staying with her. I thanked her, and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed to this. I went back to my house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install cameras around the house on the outside, and this will be done over the weekend. Then Sandra rang me on Tuesday asking if we could meet up as she had some things she wanted me to know. So we met for lunch that day. It was at this time that she told me her ex was a controlling a-hole who was incredibly selfish, and the selfishness was what she had seen in Rob for so long. That's why she had commented on him being like his father, but she had hoped that that was the extent of Rob's attitude and he hadn't picked up his dad's controlling behavior, which, to be fair, he hadn't up until this whole episode. She had left Rob's dad after he had punched Rob's brother in the face when he was 14 and Rob was 10. He had never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough, and she left with the boys. To her knowledge, her ex had never reached out to speak to Rob or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I didn't know any of this. All I had been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture and hadn't been for a long time, but Sandra had thought I knew, and that's why she hadn't told me before. However, she had found out on Sunday night that Rob was back in contact with his father, and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting lots of thoughts into Rob's head about how he is the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This had fed into Rob's selfish tendencies and had amplified them tenfold. Sandra said that she had told him to find somewhere else to stay ASAP, as she couldn't even look him in the face. Then, Rob and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as Rob is in touch with their dad, then he will have zero contact with him. Even going so far as to tell him to spend Christmas with their dad because Sandra is going to his house and Rob isn't welcome. When Sandra took Rob's brother's side in all of this, Rob flew into a rage and said he would move in with his dad. He then left the house, but came back a couple of hours later looking like he had been crying. Turns out that his dad doesn't want him living with him and basically said he could be on the streets for all he cares, and he's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. Sandra thinks that Rob is now starting to realize everything he has lost is due to him listening to his dad, and has seen his dad's true colors. Sandra is incredibly disappointed in him, but he is her son, so she is trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out as she doesn't trust him anymore. And his brothers still won't have anything to do with him. She has also told him to stay the hell away from me as I don't need to be brought into this, and he promised that he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I do have him blocked on everything, and if he turns up to the house, I will just call the police to get rid of him. The more Sandra told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more resolute I've become about wanting nothing to do with him. I never want to see him again if I can help it. So, all in all, Rob's life is a crap show, but as long as he stays away from me, then I don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and her wife, as well as my mom and stepdad, which has been great. I've never really been close to my stepdad, but this has brought us a lot closer together, which has been one huge positive out of all of this. I'm not exactly happy right now, though, but I'll get there. There's still a lot of feelings that I need to unpack, and it will take time to move on from this whole situation, and I don't think I will be dating anyone for a while. I need to really get over all of this, and don't want to dump this on anyone else right now. For all of those asking how Kim is doing, she is doing great. Had a hospital appointment on Monday, and her consultant said that her eye is healing, in his words, marvelously. So that's a relief. Thank you to everyone that reached out to me, and I hope there won't be any need to update this again. So this should hopefully be my final update. New update. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex that it's not my fault that he's homeless? So, I28F posted on relationship advice before about my now ex 29M. The post and update is on my profile, but basically, my ex-fiance wanted me to put his family before mine, even at the cost of my sister's health. I ended up breaking up with him over it, and he was forced to move in with his mom, who then found out he had been in touch with his abusive dad, who was twisting his view on how a relationship should work. Last I heard was that his mom was kicking him out as she would not have anyone in her house that was in contact with her ex, and that he had tried to go live with his dad, but his dad had refused. I was completely no contact with him, so his mom was the one who told me about this. So, I hadn't heard from Rob in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had the chain on my door, so I opened it with that still attached. No way I would let him in, and he basically told me that he had nowhere to live. His mom isn't speaking to him, and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head. His words, not mine, and he asked if I would take him back, or at least let him live with me. There is no way in hell I would get back with him, and getting him out of the house the first time only went easy because his mom stepped in to help. He had threatened to take me to court knowing that if he did, it could take months to get him out, and then said he would only move if I gave him 10,000 pounds. I contacted his mom, who was furious about that, and she turned up with his brother and forced him out. I told him that there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again, and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave, and I shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera, and have it saved to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all of our mutual friends, and it managed to get back to his mom, and she called me and asked what had happened. I told her, and she then informed me that she had put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be nearer to her other son. Her and Rob had a huge argument about this, and she finally kicked him out. And since then, he's been couch surfing. But with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't really happy with having him on their couches when they have kids and are meant to be enjoying the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She told me I was right to refuse him, but I've since had other friends say that they feel sorry for him and that I can just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. I then asked them to put him up, but they said they would but don't have room, and if they had a spare room like me, then they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. Edit. Just as a quick edit as I'm going to bed, I've spoken with the wife of one of Rob's friends, and she's asked to meet me on my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently, Rob stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than what I know of. She's going to tell me the full story tomorrow, but told me that I shouldn't let him anywhere near me, and that he's staying in a B&B, so he does have at least a roof over his head right now. I'll try and update after I've spoken to her. Update. So, I posted yesterday about my ex turning up at my house and wanting for me to let him move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of my friends thought I should let him, and that messed with my head. Rob is my ex, by the way. A few people told me to change the locks, etc., and I did that and changed my alarm code. As well, my stepdad got his friend to put up 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start shutting the gate so that nobody can walk up to the house without ringing the bell there first. I put in an edit yesterday that I was going to be meeting with one of Rob's friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say that it was informative for sure. I'll call her Nat, 30F, and her husband Zach, 29M. So, I went to meet her on my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place that a lot of my coworkers go to, and I know the staff there as well. A few Redditors thought that she might bring Rob with her, so I wanted it to be somewhere I feel comfortable and have backup if needed. Turns out, I didn't need to bother about that. When I got to the cafe, Nat was there on her own. I grabbed some lunch and a drink and sat with her. We went through the usual small talk before she started telling me what had been going on. So, Rob called up Nat's husband, Zach, on Thursday morning saying he had nowhere to go and if he could stay with them for a few days. Zach spoke to Nat and they agreed he could stay in their guest room. Rob went to their house after work and they had a long talk where Rob told them he has a flat lined up, but can't move until January. Zach and Nat agreed to let him live with them until January as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like no bringing women back there, and if he went out for drinking, he had to be quiet when he got back so he wouldn't wake up their daughter who was 6 years old. He agreed to all of this and even paid for Chinese food for them that night. The next day after work, Rob went to meet up with his dad in the pub for a few pints, and when Zach and Nat went to bed, Rob still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 a.m. in the morning by Rob arguing with a woman. Apparently, Rob had met this woman in a bar, took her back to Zach and Nat's house, and got his pleasure and then told her to get dressed and F off once he was done. And she had gotten angry, which started an argument where Rob was saying some horrific crap to her. Nat took the woman downstairs, got her a taxi, while Zach stayed upstairs arguing with Rob. Once Nat got rid of the woman, she went back upstairs and tried to calm Zach down and Rob too. And at this point, Rob decided to take out his frustrations on Nat, calling her a female dog and telling her to do something useful and make him a sandwich before bursting out laughing like he had made the funniest joke ever. This made Zach lose it, and he pinned Rob to the wall by his throat. Side note, Rob isn't a fighter at all, whereas Zach was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself well. Nat managed to get Zach off of him to let him go, and Rob was shoved in the guest room and told to sleep off the alcohol. It's a miracle that Nat's daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning, Nat got their daughter ready and went to her mom's after telling Zach to get Rob out of their house. Zach agreed, and after Nat left, he woke up Rob and told him to pack up his crap and leave. Rob tried to apologize and begged to stay, but Zach wasn't having any of it and kicked him out. Going off of the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday, Zach texted Rob to meet up so they could speak, and they met up in a pub. Zach has been friends with Rob since they were 11, and has never seen him act like he has been doing, so he wanted to find out what was really going on. Well, he managed to finally get the truth out of Rob, and basically, Rob has been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point, it's been over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen, and a man's place is to rule the house and to be waited for, and as well as decide who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into Rob's ears and it's really taken a hold of him, and Zach told Nat that he just doesn't recognize Rob anymore. Rob wants to start living his life the way his father has told him he should. When Zach pointed out that Rob's dad is 62, living in a crappy one-bedroom flat, not had a real relationship since his mom left him, has no friends, his family doesn't speak to him, and that he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub, people finish their pints so they can leave and get away from him, Rob was furious. He told Zach that his dad is just misunderstood, and Zach responded that people understood his dad just fine, and that's why they stayed away from him. He's toxic. And this pretty much ended their conversation, and Rob left. Zach did find out that Rob does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that he's found a B&B he can stay in till the flat is ready at a minimal cost. Zach and Nat have also decided to go no contact with Rob, as they don't need that toxicity around them, but especially not around their daughter. A few Redditors had said it sounded like Rob was on drugs, so I asked Nat what she thought, and she doesn't think so, but can't be sure. She and Zach think that Rob is just so far under his dad's thumb now that he's completely changed as a person. He believes that everything his dad says is gospel. She did let me know that Rob has a burner Instagram account that he is using to check on my Instagram, and I immediately made my account private. He said something about seeing me waste money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him out to Zach on Sunday. I'd been to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and had posted pics on Instagram, and all of this just made me resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house again. It also made me realize that I don't have any feelings for him anymore, other than frustration at how he's acting and some sadness at how far he's fallen from the man I once knew. I thought that hearing he had another woman in his bed would annoy me, but there was just nothing. I couldn't have cared less. I thanked Nat for the info and we agreed to keep in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with Rob, but it feels good to have someone who knows the entire situation and has seen Rob's behavior with his own eyes. There were also some Redditors that told me to ditch the friends that had told me to let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't ditch them completely as they're a part of the friend group, and that would just cause unnecessary drama. But I will be keeping my distance from them and only talking to them when part of the group. As for now, I am currently at my sister's, and we are going to watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all of our houses this weekend. So I will be on and off for the next few hours if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and giving me some perspective. Reddit isn't all that bad. Update. For anyone that's still around, I still have people reaching out to me to see if I'm okay, and I really hoped that I wouldn't have to update again, but I've just gotten a call from one of Rob's friends, and it looks like he's going to be spending Christmas in prison. Apparently, he went out on Saturday night with his dad, and they got into an argument which turned physical. Rob isn't a fighter, however, he is bigger and stronger than his dad, and it ended with his dad falling backwards and hitting his head off a wall, knocking him unconscious. The staff in the pub called the police and an ambulance, but Rob left before they got there. Rob's dad had to go to the hospital, where he still is, and I'm unsure of his exact injuries, but they're not life-threatening. He must also be awake as he is pressing charges against Rob. However, they won't keep him in unless absolutely essential at this time of year, and Rob was arrested on Sunday morning at the B&B that he's been staying at and had to appear in magistrate's court on Monday. Due to him not having a fixed address right now and the fact that his dad is still in the hospital, he has been remanded on a Section 18 with intent. Unless he can find a permanent address to go to, then he won't be getting out until his trial at Crown Court. I know his mom is already at his brother's over 250 miles away, so I don't think she will be able to help right now. And finding this out has actually given me a sense of peace right now. I've been trying to ignore it, but the chance of him turning up and spoiling Christmas has been at the back of my mind ever since he turned up at my house. And I'm hoping he stays in over Christmas so that I can just relax. Then OP in the comment section elaborated on Section 18 in her area and said, Section 18 is an assault charge, and a Section 18 with intent is the next level up, and it's classified as intending to and causing grievous bodily harm to somebody else. I've been told that if found guilty, then it's usually a multiple-year prison sentence. Small update. So, I went around to Nat and Zach's place to drop off a present for their daughter, a bottle of Bell's for Zach, and a bottle of Prosecco for Nat for Christmas, and I had a cup of tea with them while they filled me in on what's going on. Rob will be in over Christmas, but will likely get out early January, and his lawyer is trying to get the charges reduced from Section 18 with intent to a Section 20. I only found out today that a Section 18 acting with intent is one step down from attempted murder, and you're looking at double digits in prison if you get found guilty. Section 20 is a lot less severe and is usually a 2-year suspended sentence for first-time offenders, which he is. His lawyer has said that if he pleads guilty to the Section 20, then CPS will lower the charges to get this one over and done with ASAP, as the courts are ridiculously backed up in the UK right now and prisons are full. Zach went to the B&B that he was staying at and got Rob's stuff, which is now in his garage as one last favor to Rob, Zach's words. And he can't get in touch with me without my consent while he is locked away. The prison literally has to ring me and ask me if it is okay that I get put on his approval call list, and only then is he allowed to ring me, which won't be happening. I've also spoken to his mom, who has basically washed her hands of him for the time being. She thinks that he needs to learn his lesson, and maybe spending Christmas in a cell will teach him how much he's lost the plot. She has spoken to him and said that he's now saying the right things, but only time will tell if he means them. He is talking about moving to be near his brother to get away from their dad, so maybe he can see the light. His brother has refused to go on his call list, so Rob can't contact him, so I don't know how that will work. And as for his dad, he is still in the hospital with a broken hip and has had to have surgery to fix it. The broken bone and head injury is why the charges are so high right now. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, knowing he can't ruin my Christmas, and I'm just about to pack everything into the car and go stay at my mom's until January 2nd. But I thought I'd finish the year off by letting everyone know who's helped me and supported me through this to know what's going on. Merry Christmas to everyone that celebrates it, and I'm hoping everyone is doing well. Final update. Hey everybody, sorry it's been a while since my last update, but I wanted everything to be finished before I updated again. Rob spent Christmas on remand in prison. He didn't get out until the second week of January, and that was only because his mom agreed to let him stay with her again. He had his plea hearing the first week of February, where he pleaded guilty to a Section 20 assault. He then had to wait until last week to get his sentencing court date. I did not know how much actually goes into sentencing. They had to get a victim impact statement, a pre-sentencing report from probation, statements from his mom and brother. His barrister even reached out for me to give a statement saying that we had broken up and that I had asked him to leave the house. He used our breakup as an extenuating circumstance, saying that because of the breakup of our relationship and him losing his home, that had seriously impacted his mental health. The statement from his mom and brother also confirmed that he had lived in an abusive home when he was young, so he claimed that he had PTSD because of that, and these were all read out at his sentencing. He was going to get 3 years, but the judge knocked time off for pleading guilty and for mitigating circumstances, and that left him with a 16-month sentence that was suspended for 18 months. As a part of the condition for his release, he isn't allowed anywhere near his dad, and he has to go to counseling for his supposed PTSD, and he isn't allowed to drink alcohol. He even has an ankle monitor on that tests his sweat every half an hour for alcohol and will alert probation if he gets a positive result. Luckily for him, his bosses let him go and work at their main location in the city that's half an hour away from here, and probation were happy for him to live there as well. He moved into a flat there this week, so I don't have to worry about running into him. I haven't spoken to him at all, and I don't want to. He's tried reaching out through a couple of friends, but they've respected my decision and told him to move on with his life. However, I did speak to his mom yesterday, and she said that she thinks he's depressed, but so far he's doing okay. She's the one I got all of this information from. It's a strange mix of emotion for me towards him, as I still care on some level, but just not enough to keep him in my life. I know I need to keep him away from me, as I can never see him like I did at this time last year. And it's crazy to think that it's only been a year since we got engaged. So much has happened. Other than those mixed emotions, I'm doing well. I've been hanging out with my sister and her wife a lot more, as well as catching up with my friends. I'm still working at the same place I did before, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. As for the people asking about my sister, she's doing good. She had a setback last month, but she seems to be over that now and had just been approved to have some form of newish stem cell treatment at the UK's biggest eye hospital, which is fabulous news. She tried to explain it to me, but it involves them taking her blood and putting it into her eye, which grossed me out, so I told her to stop. However, because she's my sister, she sent me pictures of what they do, and my mom had to step in and tell her to stop. No matter how old we get, I don't think we will ever stop trying to annoy each other. So, all in all, I think we're all moving on with life. Unless there's something big happening, then this should be my last update. I really want to thank everyone for their kind words and support. This has restored my faith in humanity that there are still good people out there. New update. Hi everybody, I really hoped I wouldn't have to come back, but I've had several DMs on this account saying that a TikTok video is claiming that I'm back with my ex. I don't have TikTok, so I haven't seen it, but that's 100% not true. I haven't seen or spoken to him since my last update. As far as I'm aware, he's still living in the city half an hour away and is doing okay, and I'm not really interested, to be honest. Rob's mom has accepted an offer on her house and has moved in with his brother until she can finalize the purchase of her house and find a flat that she likes. Everyone else is doing well, my sister the same, and her eye is still healing. She's got some new glasses and says her vision is now nearly back to normal, so that's good. And my sister and 7 other family and friends went out to Germany for England's first game, which was a lot of fun. Other than that, I've just been working and finding my new normal. And please don't listen to anything said about this on TikTok. I will not be getting back with Rob because that ship has sailed off the edge of a cliff. And finally, OP replied to a comment on if Rob has reached out to her recently and said, he was informed that I did not want to speak to him and wanted to be left alone, and he's respected that, thankfully. I just want us both to move on now. I feel like if we got another update, we would have learned what Rob had for lunch at this point. Oh my god, final update, one more update. But as for the story, I don't know. The guy went through hell, understandably so, and, we haven't seen it recently on this channel, but we've had a lot of stories where somebody starts doing a 180 in behavior and starts acting differently, and I always say it's because someone or something got in their ear, like a person got in their ear, or the TikTok algorithm got in their ear and was showing them this crazy stuff. And for this instance, it was dad saying, hey, women belong in the kitchen and barefoot. I still don't get the whole bare thing. And, they belong in the bedroom. But how can they belong in the bedroom if they belong in the kitchen? The father's logic is completely flawed on top of the misogyny. But I don't know. I got nothing else to say about this story. I feel like everything has been covered. And if we got any more information, then it would probably be too much information at that point. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day. Have yourself some ketchup or mustard. You can only choose one. And bye-bye.